Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find. Hello everybody, and how are you today? I'm trying to think of what I need to say. It's quite funny because you think I'd know by now. I've been doing it for, 5 years? Oh well. Here we are. I'm here. You're here. We're going to read some more of this book here, Tom Swift and his Airship, and find out if any of those bullets actually deflate their airship and cause it to crash. It's a little bit worrying, really, if you think about that. Especially because airships were a relatively new thing at the time. So, yeah. Technically, they weren't new. They'd been around for the last 30 years, but not as a commonly used thing, nor as a thing that you usually built for yourself in your backyard. So, very interesting. Let's see what's going to happen, eh? But first, a word from whoever it is who's going to tell us what we can do to make the most of our time here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy when it arrives.
Oh, good day. We've stumbled across the raccoons in his stream viewing habitat. Let's watch as he learns how to better enjoy the stream and make the most of his viewing experience. Let's see, according to the video, there are 6 or 7. Number 1 would appear to be hydrate. We have our hydration right here. It's important to stay hydrated. It's good mentally and physically, and it's good for your vocal cords, other parts of your body, your mind. And that brings us to number 2. When the streamer does drink, you drink as well. Oh, what's this now? Oh, drinking. Drink. Did you drink now? Oh, you can indicate so by putting the water bottle emoji or thumbs up in chat. Next one, snacks. Ah, raccoons has snacks. There appears to be trail mix and what's that? Carrot cake. Ooh, that looks yummy. Oh, I guess we can't have any. Number 4. Is to get comfy. Well, Raccoons has his lucky blanket right here, and Raccoons also has a teddy. Who can say no to that? Don't you have a teddy? Maybe a different kind of plushie. Being comfy is good for the mind. Number 5, something to write with or write on, because you never know when you might need to look something up later. We have 2 sizes of pads right over there, 2 pens in case one has really bad ink. Good job, Raccoons. Oh, on second thought, never mind. And that brings us to our final point, which is participate in chat. You can do things like type in chat, chat with other people in chat, use commands, play Jev Bingo. Raccoons has his own Jev Bingo card right here. You can spend pages and do things like forcing Jev to wear silly things on her head like headbands, crowns, unicorn horns, and perhaps one day even something like the one that's about to appear, if I remember correctly, unless it hasn't. Did it already happen? No. Oh, and you can make clips, you can submit quotes. Just try to enjoy the stream. Ah, there's another headband. There we go. So that should do it. Enjoy the stream, and I'm going to help myself to some of that trail mix. Or not. Ah!
That ending always makes me laugh. Which it should do. That's what it's meant to do. Ah, there you go. I think I've got my hair to behave itself again. All sorts of ideas. And while I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if I can learn how to edit videos so I could just sort of tweak a couple of things. And I could do that to my ones and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, I still have to do the accounting. I still have to do the other stuff for the other website.
and all that sort of stuff. When are you going to get time to learn how to do anything else? Yeah, unfortunately not. So there you go. And yeah, the headphones are because I have not yet got it so that particular video has tip numbers on it. And as you saw, no captions yet. And it's not a quick changeover between my captions and any other audio source. I actually have to go into the settings for it and change them. Otherwise, I would do it every time. It would be easy. I would just hit a button and it would swap to the other one, or it would do it automatically. That's why I try to hard code them in for the videos if I can, if I'm going to be playing them on a regular basis. Anyway, so enough about all that. How are you? And did you bring something to drink? And what have you got today? Is it really yummy? Please tell me. And do you have something to eat? Is it meal time or snack time? And what sort of extra yummies have you got for that? And have you got someone to keep you company? Like I've got Perry. Perry sits on my desk and just is moral support all the time. He's sweet, isn't he? So, have you got a soft toy? Do you have a fidget toy? Do you have a nice warm blanket? Or is it too hot for that and you've got a fan or an air conditioner or something that you're cuddling up to? Do tell me. I am interested, and so is everybody else. Because we're nosy around here and we like finding out about stuff and finding out what other people are up to too. So, where are we up to in the story? So far, they've built the airship, they've tested the airship, they've had an accident with the airship. Tom has had another little bit of a conversation with his potential girlfriend, which obviously in the book series they're foreshadowing the fact that they will become an item. And now they're off on this longer distance trip, which is from upstate New York, north of Albany, apparently, to Atlanta, Georgia, which is a little distance away. I can tell you that now. I actually looked it up the other day. And I was like, that's not just going to be a couple of days to get there. So, yeah. Have you been learning extra things about airships and all that sort of stuff because of the story? Or has it given you the boost to actually follow up on some other things that you're interested in? All of that sort of thing. We do have a couple of extra posts in the Tom Swift channel in the Discord server with lovely information from Goriki and also from PJ, which is good to see. I love actually having those extra bits of information in there. I'm just trying to get it so that my tablet's going to give me some extra information. It's meant to. It hasn't yet. It's meant to be in mod mode, which is meant to mean that I can swipe in from the right-hand edge of the tablet because it's the mobile device version of the app, and it will give me some moderator tools. Well, that ain't happening, is it? Any moderator stuff I basically have to do in... Yeah, I can see that. Thank you. That's not useful information. I got it to work on my phone the other day, but it's not working in the tablet, even though that's an Android tablet. So, yeah, let's just quit that view and go back to my usual one where all I see is chat on the tablet. And that's the other problem, is it didn't actually seem to show me chat as a feature of what's going on, except for what I already have here. So that's disappointing. You know, give us mod tools, but don't give us mod tools. Thank you very much. Right, so we're up to chapter 16 now, which has a really weird title, Over a Fiery Furnace. Now, they're not in Hawaii, so they're not going to be over an active volcano. So this one's got me a little bit puzzled. There's definitely lots of adventure happening in this story, lots of action and adventure going on. And they were being shot at because it had been broadcast across the nation that these bank robbers were trying to get away in an airship. Well, why these particular guys? Why is everybody out shooting at them? Aren't bank robberies already happening in that part of the world? I don't think everybody's out stalking everybody else with their shotguns and their rifles and their pistols and their revolvers and everything else. But for some reason, for story purposes, I guess, they're all out taking pot shots at this airship. So Tom was going to send a message to his dad to see how they were doing. He had a message all written up. He had it tied around something to be able to drop it down to the ground. He had some money to pay for sending a telegram with that information that he'd written down on it in his little bundle, and he was going to drop it down, and he was hoping that some passerby who saw it fall and picked it up would go to the telegraph office and send a telegram to his dad to say, this is where we are and this is how it's going. He's not doing that now, is he? Because they're being shot at, because they're being accused of having robbed the bank in Shopton. Yes, and we know why, don't we? It's because Andy Foger decided that he was going to accuse them of being the ones who did it. Or Tom specifically. Of course, nobody ever doubts Andy's word. Nobody ever thinks maybe Andy's got an axe to grind against Tom, even though Tom saved his life. Nobody ever thinks, oh, Andy's been in lots of trouble and Tom hasn't. Therefore, why are we taking Andy's word and why are we not sceptical and wondering if Andy's actually involved with this theft from the bank? Why was he there in the first place? Yeah, that's what I want to know. If he was able to be witness to this, how come he was there in the middle of the night? Well, no, at night, in the evening. And why didn't the police go and check with the hardware store to find out about these tools that Tom was picking up? Because that actually was discussed at some point, I think. Whoa. It's not a big town. Just go and check with the hardware store anyway and see if anyone's been buying bank-breaking tools. And they'll say, no, but I did have somebody in here buying this and this and this. And they go, oh, no, you don't use those for breaking into a bank. You use those for doing mechanics work on a motor. No, can't be them. But, you know, these stories, we know that Stratemeyer Syndicate uses the idea of the reader knowing more and understanding more and being smarter than the main characters in the book or the story that's happening in the book, even if what the physical happenings of the book is a bit beyond our experience. We know that they use that as a way to draw their young readers in. Young as in what we would now call preteens and early teens. They didn't use those terms back then as far as I know. Anyway, so let's get on with reading it. Chapter 16, Over a Fiery Furnace. There you go. And we'll find out what it means. I hope. Soon. Down below, the aeronauts could see the crowd, led by the police, scurrying to and fro. Many individuals besides the officers appeared to be holding weapons, and from the puffs of smoke that spurted out, it was evident that more shots were being fired. But the bullets could do no harm. I don't know why, because he hasn't told us why. Is it sheet aluminium, and is it really thick, and can bullets not go through sheet aluminium? Hi, Sendo Sweetie. How are you? Great to have you here. I'm just getting annoyed with the story because that's the way they're written. My logical brain is not quite the department of logic that they were expecting to be typically reading these books, I think. So we've just had this statement that it could do no harm. Are they now high enough up in the air that the bullets are not going to get to them? In which case, those bullets are going to come down from however high they get and hit someone or something on the ground. And in theory, the speed it leaves the muzzle of the gun pushes it up to a certain height, but that means that as it's falling, it should be able to get to that speed when it's coming down again, which means that you might as well be shooting somebody else on the ground next to you or wherever that bullet lands. That's really dangerous. Oh, not doing great. That's no good. Well, hang around here. I hope you've got something yummy to eat and something yummy to drink and you've got somewhere comfortable to sit, lie, stand, whatever. Hang from your ankles on a trapeze if that's your thing. And get frustrated but also excited about this story with me. We'll see what happens. Right. So the bullets could do no harm, and I'm going to read it and we'll see if they explain it, because sometimes they do. Not always, but sometimes they do. And the red cloud, under the force of the rapidly revolving propellers, was soon beyond the centre of the city. Well, that's nice. They're out of the reach. That way, because they went that way, not because they went that way, apparently. Well, if that isn't the limit, cried Tom, they must have taken us for a German war balloon about to drop explosives on them. What? Let's introduce something really random. I don't think the Germans were using balloons for war purposes in 1910. Or were they? I thought they were using them as luxury airships for air travel to South America and around the world. Because that was what they were doing up until just before the Second World War, actually. If they must have taken us for a German war balloon about to drop explosives on them. Bless my liver, ejaculated Mr. Damon. I can't remember his voice. It'll turn up at some stage, probably. I believe you're right, Mr. Sharp? The veteran balloonist took a careful look over the craft before replying. Then he spoke. It couldn't be that. And he shook his head as if puzzled. They would know no foreign airship would try any trick like that, because why wouldn't they? Well, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. I'll get into trouble with some of the residents of that country if I say that. Anyway, no foreign airship would try any trick like that. No foreign Johnny would do such a dastardly deed, would they? No, indeed. Besides, if by some remote possibility they did imagine it, there would be soldiers shooting at us instead of police, and as it was, the whole population seemed to be anxious to bring us down. There must be a reward out for them. And they nearly did, added Mr. Damon. If they shot a few holes in the gas bag, where would we be? Right in the air, answered the balloonist. It would take several volleys of bullets to damage our aluminium container, so it's... My brain has been saying all this time that it's a flexible envelope, like as in either extra thin aluminium or that it's like a metal fabric form of aluminium, just to give it the flexibility. Because I can't see why they would be doing something solid, because that's even heavier. But I suppose, dirigibles and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I suppose it would be. Well, I'll have to get used to that idea. It would take several volleys of bullets to damage our aluminium container. It is in sections, and when one or even 5 compartments, for that matter, are pierced, there is enough gas in the others to sustain us. Oh dear, I've got personal foreshadowing going on here, nothing to do with the story. This is basically the sort of thinking that they had with the Titanic. They were saying it had watertight bulkheads. And that when it ran into anything, if it ran into an iceberg or something, it was unsinkable because it had watertight bulkheads. In other words, there were airtight sections in the ship that would keep it afloat. And if one got broken, then the rest of them would hold it up. And I remember hearing a description of how those watertight bulkheads were made. They were watertight around the bottom and up the sides. They were not watertight along the deck. The ceiling. On a boat, they usually call it the deckhead, the underside of the deck that's above. So it wasn't watertight. It was only the bottom and the sides of it that were watertight, which means that air can still escape. So the air that's in that space is not held tight in that space, preventing water coming in. No, water can come in because the air gets squeezed out. That is not a watertight bulkhead, even though they told everybody that's what they had created. No, not enough specifics there. I read actual descriptions of how it was built, and it was like, no, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. Somebody's telling porkies about what they think it's safe for, and unfortunately everybody believed them, and there were many lives lost. Sorry. So I'm a little concerned when he says, no, we have all these separate cells, as in containers within the outer envelope that hold quantities of the gas that's holding us up. And if one gets shot, the rest will be okay. If one gets damaged, the rest will be okay. It's just his absoluteness about the separate sectioning in it is very reminiscent of the way they used to talk about the separate watertight bulkheads in the Titanic. Oh dear. So I'm hoping it's a little bit better than that. It is in sections, and when 1 or even 5 compartments, for that matter, appears, there is enough gas in the others to sustain us, and that is how a lot of airships were made. The ones that were the rigid ships, not the ones that were the inflatable blimps. So they could not have damaged us much, even if they had shot a lot of holes in us. Even without the gas container, we can keep afloat by constantly moving, because it's got aeroplane wings on it. For the planes will serve their purpose, the aerofoils. Maybe he's just trying to convince himself he's not going down. Yeah. I like his theory, but if all of the cells that hold the gas go right through from top to bottom, then it is possible. It's entirely possible for someone to strafe the bottom side of the balloon and get a hole in every single compartment. There's not a lot of resistance either. So even if you had cells that were a whole lot of ones along the bottom and then a whole lot of ones along the top, unless you actually have something solid between the two of them, a bullet that goes into a gas cell from the bottom can easily get through to the next one at the top, because it's not a thick layer that's holding each of those compartments that are filled with gas apart. So yeah, science. Please, science. A bit harder, boys. Anyway, well, I will concede what he said, though, about the fact that they've got these aerofoils. They've got these aeroplane-style wings on the gondola of the balloon, or above the balloon. I can't remember where. It was in the very first descriptions. But if they keep it moving forward fast enough, it stays up in the air like an aeroplane does. So, yeah. So even without the gas container, we can keep afloat by constantly moving, for the planes will serve their purpose. Of course, they could damage us and maybe put some of our machinery out of business, and that would be a serious thing. But what puzzles me is why they fired at us at all. It couldn't be out of pure mischief, could it? Asked the young inventor. He's forgetting that the police were the first ones who fired. Why would the police be up to mischief? Hardly. If we're in a savage country, I could understand the natives firing at some such object as this airship, but the people of that city must have known what our craft was. They probably have read something about it in the newspapers, and to deliberately fire on us with the chance of disabling us seems worse than barbarous. Yeah, the natives of every country, apart from European white people countries, apparently are so dumb that they're going to fire at anything that comes past. Now, if you're talking about a country that has no exposure to the Western world, and they're seeing something that they've never seen before, they'll run away in terror, or they might actually throw something at it or fire something at it. But they're also not going to be firing guns, because that means that they've had contact with the West. And there's a higher likelihood that they have seen Western contraptions of varying sorts. So a little bit of, narrow worldview there. Well, we won't give them another opportunity, commented Mr. Damon. No, indeed, not this city, but who knows but what the example may spread. We may be fired on in the next town we sail over. Then steer clear of the towns, advised Tom, as being sensible. Impossible, we must pass over some, but I'd like to solve this mystery. What they need is somebody to have a giant billboard up saying, wanted for these reasons. Because there's no way that they're going to be able to get hold of a newspaper. And this is back in the day before televisions. Radio. Do they have radio in common usage then? Do they have a radio on board that they could hear a radio news broadcast? Ooh, I'd like to solve this mystery. The day passed without further incident, though they did not go low enough down over any city to drop any messages. Well, that's not true. Whatever height you are in the plane or the airship or anything else you're in, you could be cycling up there because you're a magical unicorn on a bicycle. Whatever height you are above the surface of the earth, as long as you're still within our atmosphere, you can still drop something. It's not guaranteed where it's going to land, but you can still drop it. I'm sorry. Let's put away the logic, shall we? This is just getting a little bit too illogical, some of the statements that the author is making. I'll try not to overreact. Let's read that again without my reaction. The day passed without further incident, though they did not go low enough down over any city to drop any messages. It was decided that it would not be safe. We'll take a chance at night, suggested Tom, and that evening, approaching a good-sized town in the dusk, several of the weighted envelopes were dropped overboard. They didn't wait to throw them towards someone in particular. Doubtless persons walking along the street who were startled by hearing something fall with a thud at their feet were much startled to look up and see... Are these children? I think I missed part of the story. Tom is a teenager, and then we've got Mr. Damon, which is the guy who's got lots of money and is terrified of things, but still goes out and gets himself technology and then has crashes and all sorts of things. That's how Tom got his motorcycle in the first place. Mr. Damon was out going for a ride on his motorbike, and crashed into a tree because he couldn't actually work the controls properly, and Tom figured out what was wrong with it. It needed some adjustments. And Mr. Sharp is a balloonist, an aeronaut, a hot air balloonist, but he had already invented it because he used to work in fairs and circuses and stuff like that, doing hot air balloon stunts. But he had also invented an airship, not a hot air balloon. So that means it was powered. You have a motor and it has propellers and it drives it along. So there's only one child in this one, although Mr. Damon at times can be a little bit more like a child than an adult. We have come across that before. Right, we'll carry on. So dropping rocks at people, well, dropping things at people so they can go and send a telegram. Doubtless persons walking along the street who were startled by hearing something fall with a thud at their feet were much startled to look up and see dimly a great ghostly shape moving in the air. But there was no shooting, and eventually some of the messages reached Mr. Swift in Shopton, but he could not answer them, for the airship kept on the move because they do not have an aerial telegraph. So, yeah. And also, like, when you're throwing things over the side for people to be able to find it, pick it up, send the message, how are you going to know that you're not going to drop it on someone's head and knock them out with it or do them an injury? Anyway, let's ignore that as well. Put that in the ignore shelf. I need that. I need a set of shelves with an ignore slot, or like an in tray and an out tray, or a round filing tray, rubbish bin, where I can put ignore in it. So the airship is a dirigible. Yes, it is. Okay, they should have radios then. 1910, I think they had radios, but I don't know if the actual airship has one. That's the problem. Otherwise, they could radio to somewhere like a post office that has a telegraph station, because they used to often have radios as well as part of their system. As long as it's wireless, not a wired system only. So, yeah. The night was spent in floating in the air with the engine stopped, and the red cloud floating lazily this way and that as the gentle winds shifted, for it was calm. The anchorage, if such it may be called, was above a sparsely settled part of the country, and if the lights of the airship were seen from below, the farmers doubtless took them for some new stars. Idiot farmers, they don't know what stars are usually there and what ones aren't. Sorry. Or possibly a comet that's just decided it's going to quietly drift or just hover, because rural people are dumb. Apparently, sorry, logic. not necessary shelf. Now then for a fast, straight run, cried Tom after breakfast had been served and the big motor with its 20 cylinders started. Oh yes, you can see a rotary motor or an aircraft motor or something along those lines in the Discord server under the Tom Swift section. And the big motor with its 20 cylinders started. We'll be able to make the turn today and then make for home, won't we, Mr. Sharp? Which means today they're going to be turning around at Atlanta, Georgia, unless they've changed their plan. So, these guys are weird. Farmers planted their fields by the stars. They still do. There's a farmer's... Exactly. This author is a city person. I can tell you that now. Oh, look, Martha. Look up there. There are some new stars. Wow. Go and get Johnny. Get him to come and have a look at the new stars. Look, they're dancing. They're moving round. Look. Quick, get them before they go away. The new stars are going away. And why he sounds like an Irish farmer, I don't know. Yeah, it is fun. Anyway, we'll get on with it. We'll be able to make the turn today and then make for home, won't we, Mr. Sharp? You know what, love? Let's pretend it's a cartoon, then it doesn't have to make sense. That's a good idea. Thank you, Sendai. We could do it, Tom, was the answer, but I like this mode of travelling so that I think I'll lengthen the voyage. Instead of turning at Atlanta, what do you say to making for Key West? And then starting back. That will be something of a trip. The Red Cloud is behaving much better than I hoped she would. Where are they going to get their refuelling substances from? I'm willing to go further if Mr. Damon is, said Tom. Oh, bless my shoestrings, I'm game, exclaimed the eccentric man. I always did want to go to Key West anyhow. He's got enough money, he could have gone any time. The craft was speeding along at a fast clip, and dinner that day was served about 3 miles in the air, and then, desiring to test the gliding abilities of the airship, it was sent down on a long slant with the propellers stationary, the shifting planes and rudders alone guiding it. So they're using the wings and the aerofoils on the wings, the steering and the elevation foils on the wings for doing all of the controlling, and they're doing a controlled downward glide, long downward glide. As the craft fairly slid down out of the sky like a sled on a bank of fleecy snow, Tom, who was peering ahead with his hand on the steering wheel, cried out, I say, it looks as if we're going to run into a thunderstorm. Sorry, I say sounded very English, didn't it? How's that? Inquired Mr. Sharp, poking his head from the motor compartment. How's that? Because it's in front of us? I'm sorry, that's a weird question. He says there's a big storm ahead, repeated Mr. Damon, and I guess he's right. I can see a big bank of dark clouds and there's a roaring in the air. Mr. Sharp, who'd been making some adjustments to the motor, went forward to take a look. The red cloud was swiftly gliding downward on a slant straight toward a dark mass of vapour that seemed to be rolling first one way and then another, while, as Mr. Damon had said, there was a low rumbling proceeding from it. Have they set the countryside on fire or something? That doesn't seem to be a thunderstorm, spoke the balloonist with a puzzled air. They all regarded the dark mass of vapour intently for a few seconds. Start the bloomin' engines! Sorry. Tom had brought the airship to a more level keel. Smart lad, that one, at the moment, and it was now spinning along under its own momentum like a flat piece of tin scaled by some lead. A flat piece of tin scaled, SCALED, by some lead. Straight over the top, that one. But it was headed for the clouds, if such they were, though losing speed by degrees. I'll have to start the motor. We have a word for that. No, we have a water bottle for that. Motor. Sorry, I've just remembered. I'll have to start the motor, exclaimed Mr. Sharp. We don't want to run into a storm if we can help it, though I don't ever remember seeing a thunder disturbance like that. Oh, good. You've got snacks and things. Yummy. Phew, it's getting warm, suddenly announced the youth. Are there any... No, it's Pennsylvania that eternal fire, that coalfield, coal mine, whatever, that got a fire going in it is burning. That's in Pennsylvania, isn't it? Atlanta's nowhere near there. Surely. They had to evacuate a whole town because it was burning along underneath it and ground was collapsing and stuff. Phew, it's getting warm, suddenly announced the youth, and he let go of the steering wheel for a moment while he took off his coat. That's what it is, agreed Mr. Damon, who also divested himself of his extra garments. Bless my spark plug, but it's a July day. No wonder there's a thunderstorm ahead. Then Mr. Sharp uttered a cry. That's no thunderstorm, he fairly shouted. It's a big forest fire. That smoke we see. We must get out of this. Turn around, Tom, while I start the engine. We must rise above it. He fairly leapt for the motor, and Tom and Mr. Damon could hear him turning the levers and wheels, ready to start. But before the explosions came, something happened. There was a sound as of some great siren whistle blowing, and then with a howl of the onrushing air, the red cloud, the propellers of which hung motionless on their shafts, was fairly sucked forward toward the fire as the current sucks a boat over a waterfall. Oh, the updraft of the heat is sucking air into it, and so the airship is being pulled in too. Start the motor, Mr. Sharp, cried Tom. I'm trying to, but something seems to be the matter. We're being drawn right over the fire, yelled Mr. Damon. We're being drawn right over the fire, yelled Mr. Damon. It's getting hotter every minute. But lots of elevation, lots of lift from that heat, hopefully, when they get into it, as long as they can stand the heat themselves. Can't you do something? Take the wheel, called the balloonist to Mr. Damon. Steer around, just as if it were an auto when we start the engine. Tom, come here and give me a hand. The motor's jammed. The young inventor sprang to obey. Mr. Damon, his face showing some of the fear he felt, grasped the steering wheel. The airship was now about a quarter of a mile high, but instead of resting motionless in the air, sustained by the gas in the container, she was being pulled forward, right toward the heart of the mass of black vapour. No, it's actually not vapour, it's smoke. Vapour is water in a semi-gaseous state, which it could now be seen was streaked with bright tongues of flame. What's making us go ahead if the motor isn't going? Asked Tom as he bent over the machine at which the aeronaut was labouring. Here comes your science lesson. Suction, draft from the fire, explained Mr. Sharp. Heated air rises and leaves a vacuum. The cold air rushes in. It's carrying us with it. We'll be right in the fire in a few minutes if we can't get started with this motor. Oh no, there's been a terrible accident. He munches popcorn. Exactly. We'll be right in the fire in a few minutes if we can't get started with this motor. I don't see what ails it. Can't we steer to one side as it is? No, we're right in a powerful current of air, and steering won't do any good until we have some motion of our own. Turn the gasoline lever on a little more and see if you can get a spark. That heat, gasoline, it'll be vaporizing. Tom did so, but no explosion resulted, as an explosion within the engine. That's an okay explosion, this one. The 20 cylinders of the big engine remained mute. The airship, meanwhile, was gathering speed. If it was a car, you'd be out there with the crank handle, turning over the motor, turning over the engine. And sorry, we did have the word motor, didn't we? We'll have a couple of these to try and get the thing to start, because you cause compression in the cylinders, and the vapor of the fuel, the petrol in the cylinders, will then explode and push the cylinder, open up push the piston. So that's how you start an old engine of a car that has a crank handle on the front, but a rotary engine, you can't do that. They don't work the same way, not as far as I know. Tom did so, but no explosion resulted. The 20 cylinders of the big engine remained mute. The airship, meanwhile, was gathering speed, sucked onward and down. Shouldn't be downward. Downward as it was by the draft from the fire, because they should be starting to get a bit of rise from the heat as well. The roaring was plainer now, and the crackling of the flames could be heard plainly too. The heat, too, grew more intense. Frantically, Tom and Mr. Sharp laboured over the motor. With the perverseness usual to gas engines, that would be a petrol engine in this case, but we're just going to have this because they used the word, that's our key word, so we're also drinking water for gas. With the perverseness of a gas engine, thank you, Sendai Sweetie, it had refused to work at a critical moment. "What shall I do?" cried Mr. Damon from his position in the pilot house. "We seem to be heading right for the midst of it." "Slant the elevation rudder," called Tom. "Send the ship up. It'll be cooler the higher we go. Maybe we can float over it." "You'd better get out there," advised Mr. Sharp. "I'll keep at this motor." He's telling Tom to go out and help Mr. Damon. "Go up as high as you can. Turn on more gas. That will elevate us, but maybe not quick enough." Why didn't they do this before? "The gas doesn't generate well in great heat. I'm afraid we're in for it," he added grimly. Oh dear. Tom sprang to relieve Mr. Damon. The heat was now intense. Nearer and nearer came the red cloud to the blazing forest, which seemed to cover several square miles. Great masses of smoke with huge pieces of charred and blazing wood carried up by the great draught circled around the ship. The red cloud was being pulled into the midst of the fire by the strong suction. Tom yanked over the elevation rudder and the nose of the craft pointed upward, but it still moved downward, and a moment later the travellers of the air felt as if they were over a fiery furnace. Chapter 17. I'm going to have a mouthful of coffee. I think I need it. Oh, my goodness. And yes, I do have some snacks. They're not called snacks. They're called shapes. Sorry. Snacks are a type of cracker in New Zealand as well. Chapter 17, Wanted for Robbery. Choking and gasping for breath, feeling as if they could not stand the intense heat more than a moment longer, the young inventor and his companions looked at each other. Death seemed ready to reach out and grasp them. The mass of heated air was so powerful that it swung and tossed the red cloud about as if it were a wisp of paper. "We must do something!" cried Mr. Damon, beginning to take off his collar and vest. "I'm choking!" "Lie down on the bottom of the car," suggested Mr. Sharp. "The smoke won't trouble you so much there." The eccentric man, too startled now to use any of his blessing expressions, did so. "Can't you start the motor?" asked Tom frantically as he stuck to his post with his hand on the steering wheel, the elevation lever jammed back as far as it would go. "I've done my best," answered the balloonist, gasping as he swallowed some smoke. "I'm afraid it's all up with us. We should have steered clear from this from the first. My, how it roars!" The crackling and snapping of the flames below them as they fed on the dry wood, which no rain had wet for weeks, was like the rush of some great cataract. Up swirled the dark smoke clouds, growing hotter and hotter all the while as the craft came nearer and nearer to the centre of the conflagration. "We must rise higher," cried Tom. "It's our only chance. Turn on the gas machine, full power, and fill the container. That will carry us up." "Yes, it's our only hope," muttered Mr. Sharp. "We must go up, but the trouble is the gas doesn't generate so fast when there's too much heat." "Yes, but at least it's going to generate. It's better than not generate." Sorry, let's carry on. "We're bound to have to stay over this fiery pit for yet some time." "The sooner you start it, the more gas you're going to have in there. And the heat that's around you will heat up what is inside your envelope, so you'll get effectively a double effect. You'll get a little bit of extra gas in there all of that time you've been talking about it instead of doing it. And on top of that, the gas that's in there will expand because it's heating up from the air around you, and that will help you to lift, like a hot air balloon, kind of. The gas won't generate so fast when there's too much heat. We're bound to have to stay over this fiery pit for some time yet. We're going up a little, spoke Tom hopefully as he glanced at a gauge near him. "We're 1,500 feet now, and we were only 12 a while ago." "Good. Keep the elevation rudder as it is, and I'll see what I can do with the gas," advised the balloonist. "It's our only hope." And he hurried into the engine room, which, like the other parts of the cabin, were now murky with choking vapour and soot. No, smoke and soot. Please stop calling it vapour. That is something liquid that is half gasified. It's droplets in a almost semi-gaseous state. Suddenly the elevation gauge showed that they were falling. The airship was going down. "What's the matter?" called Mr. Damon from the cabin floor. "I don't know," answered Tom, "unless the rudder's broken." He peered through the haze. No, the big elevation rudder was still in place, but it seemed to have no effect on the shim. That's whatever it is that's controlling it, the shim. "It's a downdraft," cried Mr. Sharp. "We're being sucked down. It won't last but a few seconds. I've seen him before." Yeah, you get that. In the landscape, if you're in a hot air balloon and you're going along and you go over an area of ground that is that stays cool, because like a forest that has cool air in it because of the leaves and all that sort of stuff, you'll get a downdraft. And if you go over a bit of land that gets very hot, like desert sands and stuff like that right next to it, suddenly you'll get an updraft. And so you'll be going along and you get pushed down and then you get pushed up, and the delineation between the two, if there is a really clear change between the two, it's almost like you've hit a wall at the same time as being shoved up or shoved down. It's really weird. I've been in a plane when it's happened, and it's like, oh my goodness. I had a great big bag on the seat next to me. It was our luggage. We were in a small plane going somewhere, and we ended up, the direction we were going through went over a great big forest, a logging forest, and there were some parts that had the big trees, so the air over there was quite cool, and then there were other parts where the land had all been cleared, and the pilot had said, "Oh, we're going to get a little bit of, there'll be air movement, there'll be like turbulence, but a bit different to that." I can't remember how he described it. We're flying along and we're doing fine, and I've got this great big bag on this, not a hard case, just a soft one, sitting on the seat next to me, and suddenly it felt like we'd hit a wall and also had been shoved up at the same time, and the bag ended up, because it went up and then came down again with the change of how fast we were going up, and then we stopped and we were carrying on at normal elevation, and it landed on my lap. And so I went from the bag being here to landing on top of my lap, and it's like, that was weird. But yeah, it can be quite startling when that happens. So no wonder these guys are getting a fright. Yeah, terrifying. Thankfully, the pilot we were with had travelled this route a lot, so he was quite familiar with it, and there were only us two and him in the plane. But yeah, it is really weird if you've not experienced something like that before. As a pilot, you'd want to know all about that, and it would still be a bit of a fright the first time it happened to you. I can tell you that now. So thankfully, Mr. Sharp knows what they are. "I've seen him before," he said. He seemed to have guessed rightly, for the next instant the airship was shooting upward again, and relief came to the aeronauts, though it was not much, for the heat was almost unbearable, and they'd taken off nearly all their clothing. "Lighten ship," sung out Mr. Sharp. "Toss over all the things you think we can spare, Tom. Some of the cases of provisions. We can get more if we need them. We must rise, and the gas isn't generating fast enough." Although as they get higher, the air should start to cool down a bit, just because there's more room for the smoke and stuff to disperse. There was no need for the young inventor at the steering wheel now, for the craft simply could not be guided. It was swirled about, now this way, now that, by the currents of heated air. At times it would rise a considerable distance, only to be pulled down again, and just before Tom began to toss overboard some boxes of food, it seemed that the end had come, for the craft went down so low that the upward leaping tongues of flame almost reached the lower frame. "I'll help you," gasped Mr. Damon, and while he and Tom tossed from the cabin windows some of their stores, Mr. Sharp was frantically endeavouring to make the gas generate faster. It was slow work, but with the lightening of the ship, their situation improved. Slowly, so slowly that it seemed an age, the elevation pointer went higher and higher on the dial. 1,600 feet, sung out Tom, pausing for a look at the gauge. "That's the best yet." The heat was felt less now, and every minute was improving their situation. Slowly the hand moved. The gas was being made in larger quantities now that the heat was less. 10 minutes more of agony, and their danger was over. They were still above the burning area, but sufficiently high so that only stray wisps of smoke enveloped them. "Phew, but that was the worst ever!" cried Tom as he sank exhausted on a bench and wiped his perspiring face. "We sure were in a bad way." "I should say so," agreed Mr. Sharp. "And if we don't get a breeze, we may have to stay here for some time." "Why, can't you get that motor to work yet?" asked "Why, can't you get that motor to work yet?" asked Mr. Damon. "Bless my gaiters, but I'm all in, as the boys say." "I'll have another try at the machine now," replied Mr. Sharp. "Probably it will work now, after we're out of danger, without the aid of it." His guess proved correct, for in a few moments, with the aid of Tom, the motor started. Oh, yeah, that's motor, water. And can't you get the motor to work yet? So that's another one. The propellers revolved and the red cloud was sent swiftly out of the fire zone. "Now, we'd better take account of ourselves, our provisions, and the ship," said Mr. Sharp, when they had flown about 20 miles and were much refreshed by the cooler atmosphere. "I don't believe the craft is damaged any, except some of the braces may be warped by the heat. As for the provisions, you threw over a lot, didn't you, Tom?" "Well, I had to." "Yes, I guess you did. Well, we'll make a landing." "Do you think it will be safe?" asked Mr. Damon anxiously. "We might be fired upon again." "Oh, there's no danger of that, but I'll take precautions. I don't want a big crowd around when we come down, so we'll pick out a secluded place and land just at dusk." Wondering why they painted the thing red so it was really obvious. "And go to the... No. And land just at dusk, and then in the morning we can look over the ship and go to the nearest town to buy provisions. After that we can continue our journey, and we'll still steer clear of forest fires after this." "And people who shoot at us," added Mr. Damon. "Yes, I wish I knew what that was done for." And once again came that puzzled look to the face of the balloonist. The airship gently descended that evening in a large level field, a good landing being made. Just before the descent, Tom took an observation and located about 2 miles from the spot they selected for an anchorage, a good-sized village. "We can get provisions there," he announced. "Yes, but we must not let it be known what they are for," said Mr. Sharp, "or we'll have the whole population out here. I think this will be a good plan. Tom, you and Mr. Damon go into town and buy the things we need. I'll stay here with the airship and look it all over. You can arrange to have the stuff carted out here in the morning and left at a point, say, about a quarter of a mile away. Then we can carry it to the ship. In that way no one will discover us, and we'll not be bothered with curiosity seekers or gun-toting madmen. Reward seekers. Gun-toting reward seekers. This was voted a good idea, and when the landing had been made and a hasty examination showed that the ship had suffered no great damage from the passage over the fire. I don't know how their lungs are, actually. Seriously, that much smoke to be pushing them around like that? They should have been suffocated or suffering smoke inhalation or heat damage to their lungs. The young inventor and Mr. Damon set off. They soon found a good road leading to town and tramped along it in the early evening. The few persons they met paid little attention to them, save to bow in a friendly fashion and occasionally wished them good evening. "I wonder where we are?" asked Tom, as they hurried along. "In some southern town, to judge by the voices of the people and the number of coloured individuals we've met," answered Mr. Damon. "Okay, then. Not something I thought of, but that kind of makes sense." "Let's ask," suggested Tom. "No, if you do, they'll know we're strangers, and they may ask a lot of questions." "Oh, I guess if it's a small place, they'll know we're strangers soon enough," commented Tom. "But when we get to the village itself, we can read the name on the store windows. We can also see if we can get a newspaper and see our faces on the front cover." A few minutes later found them in the midst of a typical southern town. It was Berneau, Berneau. Now, I don't know if that is a real place. Maybe somebody can look it up. Berneau. In, not in. Okay, just ignore the captions and go by what you heard me say. It was Berneau, North Carolina, according to the signs they saw, and I'm sure that they say it differently to what I do. Here's a restaurant, called Tom, as they passed a neat-appearing one. Let's go inside and get some supper before we buy our supplies. Good, exclaimed Mr. Damon. Bless my flapjacks, but I'm beginning to feel hungry. The eating place was a good one, and Tom's predictions about their being taken for strangers was verified, for no sooner had they given their orders than the pretty girl who waited on the table remarked, I reckon you're from the north, you are, aren't you? I'm sorry, I can't do a southern accent properly, especially the way it's written. She smiled as she spoke, and Tom smiled back as he acknowledged it. Have you a newspaper I could look at? He said. I guess I can find one, went on the girl. I reckon y'all are from New York. New Yorkers are desperate bent on reading the news. Her tones were almost like those of a different sort of people, and I'm not going to say that one again. Yes, we're from a part of New York, was Tom's reply. When a newspaper was brought to them after they had nearly finished their meal, the young inventor rapidly scanned the pages. Something on the front sheet, under a heading of big black type, caught his eye. He started as he read it. He was startled. He had a fright. Wanted for robbery. Bank looters escape in red airship. Fired at but disappear. Red. Great Jehoshaphat! Exclaimed Tom in a low voice. What on earth can this mean? Keep your voice down, Tom. What? Inquired Mr. Damon. Has anything happened? Happened? I should say there had, was the answer. Why, we're accused of having robbed the Shopton Bank of $75,000 the night before we left. Tom, talk about it when you get back to the ship. Go and get the supplies first. And to have taken it away in the Red Cloud. There's a general alarm out for us. Why, this is awful. It's preposterous, burst out Mr. Damon. I'll have my lawyers sue that paper. Bless my stocks and bonds. Hush, not so loud, cautioned Tom, for the pretty waitress was watching them curiously. Here, read this, and then we'll decide what to do. But one thing is certain, we must go back to Shopton at once to clear ourselves of this accusation. Is he only smart when it's convenient? Nail on the head. You got the nail on the head with that one there, Sendo Sweaty. Definitely. Hang on. We must go back to Shopton at once to clear ourselves of this accusation. Ha! Murmured Mr. Damon as he read the article rapidly. Now I know why they fired at us. They hoped to bring us down, capture us, and get the $5,000 reward. Let's turn ourselves in and get the reward. Chapter 18. We're at how? Oh, yeah, nearly 2 o'clock. Back for vindication. That means they're back in Shopton in this chapter. Tom glanced around the restaurant. There were few persons in it save himself and Mr. Damon. The pretty waitress was still regarding the two curiously. We ought to take that paper along with us to show Mr. Sharp, said Tom in a low voice to his friend. I haven't had time to take it all in myself yet. Let's go. I've had enough to eat. Haven't you? Yes, my appetite's gone now. As they arose to pay their checks, the girl advanced. Can you tell me where I can get a copy of this paper? Asked Tom as he laid down a generous tip on the table for the girl. Her eyes opened rather wide. Generous tip? If you're suspected bank robbers, y'all are forgetting some of your money, she said in her broad southern tones. Tom thought her the prettiest girl he'd ever seen, excepting Mary Nestor. Oh, that's for you, replied the young inventor. It's a tip. Aren't you in the habit of getting them down here? Not very often. Thank y'all. But what'd you ask about that paper? I asked where I could get a copy of it. There's something in it that interests me. Yes, I reckon I knows what it is, exclaimed the girl. It's about that airship with the robbers in it. How do you know? Inquired Tom quickly, and he tried to seem cool, though he felt the hot blood mounting to his cheeks. He's blushing, that means. Just say it, writer. Oh, I saw y'all reading it. Everybody down here is crazy about it. We all think the ship's coming down this way 'cause it says the robbers were intending to start south before they robbed the bank. I wish I could collect that $5,000. If I could see that airship, I wouldn't work no more in this eating place. What y'all reckon that airship looks like? And the girl gazed intently at Tom and Mr. Damon. Why, bless my... began the eccentric man, but Tom broke in hurriedly. Whoa, I guess it looks like most any other airship, for he feared that if his companion used any of his odd expressions he might be recognised, since our hero had not had time to read the article in the paper through, and was not sure whether or not a description of himself and Mr. Damon and Mr. Sharp was given. Well, I sure wish I could collect that reward, went on the girl. Everybody is on the lookout. Y'all ain't seen the airship, have y'all? I don't think you usually say y'all at beginning and end of a short sentence. Someone who lives in the South, can you tell me? Where can we get a paper like this? Asked Tom again, not wanting to answer such a leading question. Why, y'all is sure welcome to that one, was the reply. I guess I can afford to give it to you after all. After the generous way y'all have behaved to me, take it and welcome. But are y'all sure you're done eating? Y'all left lots. I think the author is trying to chuck y'all in there a little too much. And also the way he's spelling it is not familiar. Oh, we had enough, replied Tom hurriedly. His sole aim now was to get away, to consult with Mr. Sharp, and he needed the paper to learn further details of the astonishing news. He's forgetting the supplies entirely. He and his friends accused of looting the bank and taking away $75,000 in the airship. It was incredible. A reward of $5,000 offered for their capture. They might be arrested any minute, yet they could not go on without buying some provisions. What were they to do? Yay, he's remembered provisions. Once outside the restaurant, Mr. Damon and Tom walked swiftly on. They came to a corner where there was a street lamp, and there the young inventor paused to scan the paper again. Good. It was a copy of a journal published in the nearby county seat, the capital of the county, the main centre in the area that they're in, and contained quite a full account of the affair. The story was told of how the bank had been broken into, the vault rifled, and the money taken. The first clue, it said, was given by a youth named Andy Foger, who had seen a former acquaintance hanging around the bank with burglar tools. Tom recognised the description of himself as the former acquaintance, but he could not understand the rest. Burglar tools? Wonder how Andy could say that, he asked Mr. Damon. Wait until we get back and we'll ask John Sharp, suggested his companion. This is very strange. I'm going to sue someone for spreading false reports about me. Bless my ledgers. Why, I have money on deposit in that bank. To think that I would rob it. And I'm sorry that his accent just went sideways. Poor Dad, murmured Tom. This must be hard for him. But what about ordering food? Maybe if we buy any, they will trail us, find the airship and capture it. I don't want to be arrested even if I am innocent, and I certainly don't want the airship to fall into the hands of the police. They might damage it. We must go see Mr. Sharp, declared Mr. Damon, and back to where the red cloud was, to where the red cloud was concealed, they went. To say that the balloonist was astonished is putting it mildly. He was even more excited than was Mr. Damon. Wait until I get hold of that Andy Foger, he cried. I'll make him sweat for this. I see he's already laid claim to the reward, he added, reading further along in the article. He thinks he has put the police on our trail. So he seems to have done, added Tom. The whole country has been notified to look out for us, the paper says. We're likely to be fired upon whenever we pass over a city or town. Then we'll have to avoid them, declared the balloonist. But we must go back, declared Tom. Of course, back to be vindicated. We'll have to give up our trip. My, but this is a surprise. I don't see what makes Andy say he saw me with burglar tools, commented Tom with a puzzled air. Mr. Sharp thought for a moment. Then he exclaimed, It was that bag of tools I sent you after, the long wrenches, the pliers, and the brace and bits. You... Of course, I remember now. They should buy some paint and get to work. They should. Absolutely. Or throw some branches over it or something. No, it's too big for that. The bag dropped and opened, and Andy and Sam saw the tools, but the idea of taking them for burglar tools, he's just being a vindictive, nasty lad. Well, I suppose the burglars, whoever they were, did use tools similar to those to break open the vault, put in Mr. Damon. Andy probably thought he was a smart lad to put the police on our track. What a word, lad. I'll put him on the track when I return, declared Mr. Sharp. Well now, what's to be done? We've got to have food, suggested Tom. Yes, but I think we can manage that. I've been looking over the ship as best I could in the dark. It seems to be all right. We can start early in the morning without anyone around here knowing we paid their town a visit. You and Mr. Damon go back to town, Tom, and order some stuff. Have the man leave it by the roadside early tomorrow morning. Tell him it's for some travellers who'll stop and pick it up. Pay him well and tell him to keep quiet, as it's for a racing party. That's true enough, because they're trying to see how long it's going to take them. In theory, they're not racing anyone else, though. We're going to race home to vindicate our reputations. I think that will be all right. The man may get suspicious, declared Mr. Damon. I hope not, answered the balloonist. We've got to take a chance anyhow. The plan worked well, however, the storekeeper promising to have the supplies on hand at the time and place mentioned. I was just checking out where the however and the commas were as to whether I was reading it correctly. He winked as Tom asked him to keep quiet about it. I know you automobile fellas, he said with a laugh. You want to get some grub on the fly so you don't have to stop and can beat the other fella. I know you, for I see them automobile goggles sticking out of your pocket. Tom and Mr. Damon each had a pair to use when the wind was strong, but the young inventor had forgotten about his. They now served him a good turn, for they turned the thoughts of the storekeeper in a new channel, in other words, ground-based, not air-based. The lad let it go at that. Lad. And paying for such things as he and Mr. Damon could not carry, left the store. Oh, the stuff that the guy's going to take. Plus, they've already paid for the stuff they're going to carry. The aeronauts passed an uneasy night. They raised their ship high in the... I'm amazed at how late a lot of these shops are open, because they talk about landing and it's like quite late in the evening, and they go into town, they go to a restaurant, have some food, they go back to the airship, they go into town again, and they go to a grocery store and it's open. What hours do you guys keep over there? Especially back then. Everything over here used, especially around then, used to shut sort of like 5 o'clock at night, maybe 6 o'clock if it was late. Maybe you guys don't live like that. I don't know. To me, it's strange. Anyway. The aeronauts passed an uneasy night. They raised their ship high in the air, anchoring it by a rope fast to a big tree, and they turned on no lights, for they did not want to betray their position. They descended before it was yet daylight, and a little later hurried to the place where the provisions were left. They found their supplies safely on hand, and carried them into the airship, prepared to turn back to carrying them to the airport ship. Prepared to turn back to Shopton. As the ship rose high in the air, a crowd of labourers passing through a distant field saw it. At once they raised a commotion, shouting and pointing to the wonderful sight. "We're discovered!" cried Tom. "No matter," answered Mr. Sharp. "We'll soon be out of sight, and we'll fly high the rest of this trip." Tom looked down on the fast disappearing little hamlet, and he thought of the pretty girl in the restaurant. Oh, his girlfriend-to-be is not going to be happy if he's got a roving eye like this. Chapter 19. Wrecked. That does not sound good. With her nose headed north, the red clouds swung along through the air. Those on board were thinking of many things, but the chief among them was the unjust accusation that had been made against them by an irresponsible boy. the red-haired Andy Foger. They read the account in the paper again, seeking to learn from it new things at each perusal. "It's just a lot of circumstantial evidence, is what it is," said Tom. "I admit it might look suspicious to anyone that didn't know us, but Andy Foger has certainly done the most mischief by his conclusions. Burglar tools, the idea!" "I think I shall sue the bank for damages," declared Mr. Damon. "They have injured my reputation by making this accusation against me. Anyhow, I'll certainly never do any more business with them, and I'll withdraw my $10,000 deposit as soon as we get back." "Mr. Sharp doesn't seem to be accused of doing anything at all," remarked Tom, reading the article for perhaps the 10th time. "Oh, I guess I'm a sort of general all-round bad man who helped you burglars to escape with the booty," answered the balloonist, with a laugh. "I expect to be arrested along with you two." "But must we be arrested?" inquired Tom anxiously. "I don't like that idea at all. We haven't done anything." "This is my plan," went on Mr. Sharp. "We'll get back to Shopton as quickly as we can. We'll arrive at night so no one will see us, and leaving the airship in some secluded spot, we'll go to the police and explain matters. We can easily prove that we had nothing to do with the robbery. Why, we were all at home the night it happened. Mr. Swift, Mr. Jackson, and Mrs. Baggert can testify to that." "Yes," agreed Mr. Damon. "I guess they can. Bless my bank book, but that seems a good plan. We'll follow it." Proceeding on the plan which they had described was the best one. But proceeding on the plan which they had decided was the best one, that makes more sense, the red cloud was sent high into the air. So high up was it that at times it was above the clouds. Though this caused some little discomfort at first, especially to Mr. Damon, he soon became used to it, as did the others, and it had the advantage of concealing them from the persons below who might be on the lookout. "For we don't want to be shot at again," explained Mr. Sharp. "It isn't altogether healthy and not very safe. If we keep up high, they can't see us, much less shoot at us. They'll take us for some big bird. Then, too, we can go faster." "I suppose there'll be another alarm sent out from those men having sighted us," ventured Tom. "Oh, yes, but those fellows were so excited they may describe us as having horns, hooves, and a tail. Yeah, well, you have got a red airship. And their story may not be believed, because they're agricultural workers. Downtrodden agricultural workers, who people were disinclined to believe anyway, because they were the wrong sort, if you know what I mean. I'm not worrying about them. My chief concern is to drive the Red Cloud for all she's worth. I want to explain some things back there in Shopton." As if repenting of the way it had misbehaved over the forest fire, the airship was now swinging along at a rapid rate. Seated in the cabin, the travellers would have really enjoyed the return trip had it not been for the accusation hanging over them. The weather was fine and clear, and as they skimmed along, now and then coming out from the clouds, they caught glimpses below them of the earth above which they were travelling. They had a general idea of their location from knowing the town where the paper had given them such astounding news, and it was easy to calculate their rate of progress. I'm hoping that they have some pretty good maps on board. After running about 100 miles or so at high speed, Mr. Sharp found it necessary to slow down the motor, as some of the new bearings were heating. Remember I told you about you have to run an engine in? Have to run it at a reasonable rate, not a high rate, so that it doesn't seize? Yes, motor, well done. Still, this gave them no alarm, as they were making good time. They came to a stop that night and calculated that by the next evening, or 2 at the latest, they would be back in Shopton. They'd been about 100 miles, it said. It's not 300 miles. It's more like 1,500 miles. That by the next evening, or 2 at the latest, they would be back in Shopton, but they did not calculate on an accident. Oh dear. One of the cylinders on the big motor cracked as they started up the next morning, and for some hours they had to hang in the air, suspended by the gas in the container, while Mr. Sharp and Tom took out the damaged part and put in a spare one, the cylinders being cast separately. Yay! And a modern engine, they're all cast as part of the block. And if you get one of them cracks, tough bickies. It was dusk when they finished and too late to start up, so they remained about in the same place until the next day. Morning dawned with a hot humidness, unusual at that time of year. Oh dear, more problems. We know something's going to happen when they give us that sort of foreshadowing comment, don't we? I'm just going to see if my... Oh, is it under this? Just trying to see. I'm meant to have a command for foreshadowing. It's not under that. I'll have a look at the other one, just in case anyone ever wants to use it. I'm meant to know what it is. Not that one. I don't know what it is. I can't find it. It's disappeared. I'm going to have to ignore it. What gets me is that no one in the town was talking about that forest fire. I know. It's like there's this major, even if it wasn't really close to the town, nobody was worried. Nobody was commenting on it. You know, that city down the road, they're under threat from a great big giant forest fire. Have you heard anything about that, Bob? Oh, yeah, I was wondering what was going to happen about this. We'll be okay as long as the wind doesn't come in our direction. What do you think, Sally? Oh, well, I was really thinking it was such a marvellous day because the sun was shining so well, and then that smoke came across, and it really, it made all my lovely washing get all smoky smelling, and I wasn't happy about it at all. Yeah, why are they not talking about the giant forest fire that is risking life and limb, property, people, everything, you know? Where is it? I can't find... Foreshadow. There. Let's find out what the actual command is for it. Oh, it's just exclamation foreshadow, as in the word foreshadow, written normally. Of course it's written normally. Why would I think that I had written it in a short form? I don't know. I was trying the number before. Yeah, lots of fun. Except, yeah, that just doesn't make sense, does it? Maybe that'll get in the news eventually instead of the robbery. Anyway, robbery, burglary. In British English, there's burglary and robbery. And robbery is where you threaten someone to get something. Burglary is where you break into somewhere and there's no other people around involved and you steal. I think that's what the difference is. But yeah, bank robbery, that's what they're always called. That's what that sort of thing is always called. Let's carry on. Oh dear, where did I get to? Morning dawned with a hot, humidness unusual at that time of the year, but partly accounted for by the fact that they were still within the influence of the southern climate. But still sounds a little bit odd, doesn't it? A little bit foreshadowing going on. With a whiz, the big propellers were set in motion, and with Tom at the wheel, the ship began being about 3 miles in the air, to which height it had risen after the repairs were made. The journey was recommenced. It's cooler up here than down below, remarked Tom as he shifted the wheel and rudder a bit in response to a gust of wind that heeled the craft over. Yes, I think we're going to have a storm, remarked Mr. Sharp, eyeing the clouds with a professional air. We may run ahead of it or right into it. We'll go down a bit toward night when there's less danger of being shot. If the storm clouds don't go too high, you can go above them, but if they're ones that are the really towering ones, you can't. So far on their return trip, they had not been low enough in daytime to be in any danger from persons who hoped to earn the $5,000 reward. The afternoon passed quickly and it got dark early. There was a curious hum to the wind, and hearing it, Mr. Sharp began to go about the ship, seeing that everything was fast and taut, as in tightly attached, and wires tight enough, and all that sort of thing. T-A-U-T. "We're going to have a blow," he remarked, "and a heavy one too. We'll have to make everything snug and be ready to go up or down as the case calls for." "Up or down?" inquired Mr. Damon. "Yes, by rising we may escape the blow, or by going below the strata of agitated air underneath the storm clouds. We may escape it. How about rain?" "Well, you can go get above rain, but you can't get below it with the law of gravitation working as it does at present. How's the gas generator, Tom?" "Seems to be all right," replied the young inventor, who had relinquished the wheel to the balloonist. They ate an early supper, and hardly had the dishes been put away when, from the west, there was a low-flying bank of cloud. Where there was a low-flying bank of clouds... Oh, yeah, sorry, motor. Oh, no, how was the gas? That was gas, yes, I just remembered. I'm replaying the words in my head. Where there was a low-flying bank of clouds, there came a mutter of thunder. A little later, there was a dull red illumination amid the rolling masses of vapour. "There's the storm, and she's heading right this way," commented Mr. Sharp. "A red illumination? Lightning inside clouds is not red. It's white. It's white. "Can't you avoid it?" asked Mr. Damon anxiously. "I could if I knew how high it was, but I guess we'll wait and see how it looks as we get closer." The airship was flying on, and the storm, driven by a mighty wind, was rushing to meet it. Already there was a sighing, moaning sound in the wire and wooden braces of the red cloud. Suddenly there came such a blast that it heeled the ship over on her side. "Shift the equilibrium rudders!" shouted Mr. Sharp to Tom, turning the wheel and various levers over to the lad. My throat's getting a bit itchy. "I'm going to get more speed out of the motor." Tom acted just in time, and after bobbing about like a cork on the water, the ship was righted and sent forging ahead under the influence of the propellers worked at top speed. Nor was this any too much, for it needed all the power of the big engine to even partially overcome the force of the wind that was blowing right against the red cloud. Of course, they might have turned and flown before it, but they wanted to go north, not south. They wanted to face their accusers. Then, after the first fury of the blast had spent itself, there came a deluge of rain, following a dazzling glare of lightning and a bursting crash of thunder. In spite of the gale buffeting her, the airship was making good progress. The skill of Tom and the balloonist was never shown to better advantage. All around them the storm raged, but through it the craft kept on her way. Nothing could be seen but pelting sheets of water and swirling mist, yet onward the ship was driven. The thunder was deafening, and the lightning nearly blinded them, but the electrics were switched on, flooding the cabin with radiance. That's the lights were turned on. Inside the car they were snug and dry, though the pitching of the craft was like that of a big liner in the troughs of the ocean waves. "Will she weather it? Will she weather it, do you think?" said Mr. Damon in the ear of Mr. Sharp, shouting so as to be heard above the noise of the elements and the hum of the motor. The balloonist nodded. "She's a good ship," he answered proudly. Hardly had he spoken when there came a crash, louder than any that had preceded, and the flash of rosy light that accompanied it seemed to set the whole heavens on fire. At the same time there was a violent shock to the ship. "We're hit! Struck by lightning!" yelled Tom. "We're falling!" called Mr. Damon an instant later. Mr. Sharp looked at the elevation gauge. The hand was slowly swinging around. Down, down dropped the red cloud. She was being roughly treated by the storm. "I'm afraid we're wrecked," said the balloonist in a low voice, scarcely audible above the roar of the tempest. Following the great crash had come a comparatively light bombardment from the sky artillery. "Use the gliding rudder, Tom," called Mr. Sharp a moment later. "We may fall, but we'll land as easily as possible." The wind, the rain, the lightning and thunder continued. Down, down sank the ship. Its fall was somewhat checked by the rudder. Tom swung into place, and by setting the planes at a different angle, the motor had been stopped and the propellers no longer revolved. In the confusion and darkness, it was not safe to run ahead, with the danger of colliding with unseen objects on the earth. They tried to peer from the windows, but could see nothing. A moment later, as they stared at each other with fear in their eyes, there came a shock. The ship trembled from end to end. "We've landed!" cried Tom as he yanked back on the levers. The airship came to a stop. "Now to see where we are," said Mr. Sharp grimly, "and how badly we're wrecked." Oh no. This is chapter 20. Tom gets a clue. Let's find out how many we've got to go. 5 chapters. There's 5 chapters to go till the end, not including this one. Tom gets a clue. I don't think we're going to get there before the end today. I don't know. Hang on, let's just have a quick look. $272 through to $330. That's 60 pages. No, we're not going to get there. That's twice as long as what we've got. Tom gets a... The reason I'm checking is it would be really cool if I could finish today, because then on Friday... No, today's Friday. On Monday, I can have a playthrough of the completely new world that one of the games I've got has updated to. So the old world we used to use is gone. Although if you play via PC and Steam, you can still access it as an archival one, but you can't actually play it in association with the other version of it. And they've built a whole new map. It is huge, and the story style runs differently. Why didn't they just wait out the storm, stubborn men? Yeah, definitely. We've got to go and defend our honour. Yeah. Sure. Tom gets a clue, chapter 20. Out of the cabin of the now stationary airship hurried the 3 travellers, out into the pelting rain which was lashing into their faces by the strong wind. Tom was the first to emerge. "We're on something solid," he cried, stamping his feet. "A rock, I guess. Gracious, I hope we're not on a rock in the midst of a river," exclaimed Mr. Damon. "And why are they all out on the rock on the ground instead of some of them being in the ship in case for some reason it gets shoved, moved, and they get left without anything?" "Bless my soul, though, the water does seem to be running around my ankles." "There's enough rain to make water run almost up to our necks," called Mr. Sharp above the noise of the storm. "Tom, can you make out where we are?" "Not exactly. Is the ship all right?" "I can't see very well, but there appears to be a hole in the gas container. A big one, too, or we wouldn't have fallen so quickly." "Ah, what happened to all those cells that separated the different compartments of gas?" They haven't got their clue yet. No, definitely not. The plight of the travellers of the air was anything but enviable. They were wet through, for it needed only a few minutes' exposure to the pelting storm to bring this about. They could not tell in the midst of the darkness where they were, and they almost feared to move, for fear they might be on top of some rock or precipice over which they might tumble if they took a false step. Let's get back inside the ship," proposed Mr. Damon. "It's warm and dry in there at all events. Bless my umbrella, I don't know when I've been so wet." "I'm not going in until I find out where we are," declared Tom. Signpost, "You are here," with a map pointing to a particular place. I don't know. Tom, time to get this out, I think. It's dark, it's night time. They're in the middle of a storm. Well, it seems to be night. And they're in a storm. They can't see. And he expects to find out where they are. "I'm not going in until I find out where we are," declared Tom. "Wait a minute and I'll go in and get an electric flash lantern." Torch? Flashlight? "That will show us, if you know what you're looking at." for the lightning had ceased with the great crash that seemed to erect the red cloud. The rain still kept up, however, and there was a distant muttering of thunder while it was so black that had not the lights in the cabin of the airship been faintly glowing, they could hardly have found the craft had they moved 10 feet from it. Not good. Tom soon returned with the portable electric lamp operated by dry batteries. Dry cells, they used to be called. He flashed it on the surface of where they were standing and uttered an exclamation. "We're on a roof!" He cried. "A roof?" repeated Mr. Damon. "Yes, the roof of some large building, and when you thought it was a river, what you thought was a river is the rainwater running off it. See?" The young inventor held the light down so his companions could observe the surface of that upon which the airship rested. There was no doubt about it. They were on top of a large building. "If we're on a roof, we must be in the midst of a city," objected Mr. They don't have roofs anywhere except for cities, apparently. "But I can't see any lights around, and we would see them if we were in a city, you know." "Maybe they've got a power cut." "Maybe the storm put the lights out of business," suggested Mr. Sharp. "That often occurs." "Yep, does right here." "I know one way we can find out for certain," went on Tom. "How?" "Start up our search lamp and play it all around. We can't make sure how large this roof is in the dark, and it's risky trying to trace the edges by walking around." So he means they're on top of a flat roof, not like he said we're on a roof. My brain says house, barn, shed, angled, reasonably flat, but still with an angle. He's talking about a flat top of a taller building. Like a factory, maybe, yeah. Exactly. Little bit more detail needed, Mr. Author, thank you very much. Risky trying to trace the edges by walking around. Yes, and it would be risky to start our searchlight going, objected Mr. Sharp. People would see it and there'd be a crowd up here in less than no time, storm or no storm. He's got a flashlight. Can you not use the flashlight to find the edge, but use a rope to find your way back to the ship? If you can't see that well. No, we've got to keep it dark until we can see what's the matter. We must leave here before daylight. Suppose we can't, said Mr. Damon. The crowds will be sure to see us then anyhow. Pretty sure we can get away, was the opinion of the balloonist. Even if our gas container is so damaged that it will not sustain us, we are still an aeroplane. But they haven't got a very long runway if they're on a roof. And this roof being flat, did they say that before, that the roof was flat? No. One word. It's all they needed. We'll make a good place to start from. No, we can leave as soon as the storm lets up a little. Then I'm going to have a look and find out what sort of a building this is, declared Tom, and while Mr. Sharp began a survey, as well as he could in the dark, of the airship, the young inventor proceeded cautiously to ascertain the extent of the roof. There's usually a parapet that runs round them, unless it's like if it's a normal, like an apartment building or something like that, where it's actually a flat roof. If it's a factory, the ones I'm familiar with have a bit more slope to them. They don't have a parapet, an edge that stands up, like a bit like a rail. The rain was not coming down quite so hard now, and Tom found it easier to see. Mr. Damon, finding he could do nothing to help, went back into the cabin, blessing himself and his various possessions at the odd predicament in which they found themselves. Flashing his light every few seconds, Tom walked on until he came to one edge of the roof. It was very large, as he could judge by the time it took him to traverse it. There was a low parapet at the edge. He peered over, and an expanse of dark wall met his eyes. Must have come to one side, he reasoned. I want to get to the front. Then maybe I can see a sign that will tell me what I want to know. The lad I hope he's counting his paces so he knows how to get back to the middle of this roof where the ship is. The lad turned to the left and presently came to another parapet. It was higher and ornamented with terracotta bricks. This sounds like a frontage. This evidently was the front. As Tom peered over the edge of the little raised ledge, there flashed out below him hundreds of electric lights. The city illuminating plant was being repaired. The city power plant. illuminating plant. Then Tom saw flashing below him one of those large signs made of incandescent lights. It was in front of the building, and as soon as our hero saw the words, he knew where the airship had landed. For what he read as he leant over was this: Middleville Arcade. Tom gave a cry. "What's the matter?" called Mr. Sharp. "I've discovered something," answered Tom, hurrying up to his friend. "We're on top of the Middleville Arcade building." "What does that mean?" "It means we're not very far from home and in the midst of a fairly large city, but it means more than that." I'm having a look at the map. No, it doesn't say. To see if it showed me where Middleville was on that map that we had before that I put up. It doesn't. That's a pity. "But it means more than that." "What?" demanded the balloonist, struck by an air of excitement about the lad. For as Tom stood in the subdued glow of the lights from one of the airship's cabin windows, all the others having been darkened as the storm slackened, his eyes shone brightly. Oh yeah, they turned off the extra lights in the airship so that they're less visible for a start, and also they've got more light around them in general. "This is the building where Anson Morse, one of the gang that robbed Dad, once had an office," went on Tom eagerly. "That was brought out at the trial, and it's the place where they used to do some of their conspiring. Maybe some of the crowd are here laying low." "Well, if they are, we don't want anything to do with that gang," said Mr. Sharp. "We can't arrest them. Besides, I've found out that our ship is all right after all. We can proceed as soon as we like. There's only a small leak in the gas container. It was the generator machine that was put out of business by the lightning, and I've repaired it." "I want to see if I can get any trace of the rascals," said Tom. "Maybe I could learn something from the janitor of the arcade about them. The janitor is probably here." "But why do you want to get any information about that gang?" "Because," answered Tom, and as Mr. Damon at that moment started to come from the cabin of the airship, the lad leapt forward and whispered the remainder of the sentence into the ear of the balloonist. "You don't mean it." So for some reason he doesn't want Mr. Damon to know. "You don't mean it?" exclaimed Mr. Sharp in a tense whisper. Tom nodded vigorously. "But how can you enter the building?" asked the other. "You can't drop over the edge." "Down the scuttle," answered Tom. "There must be one on the roof, for they have to come up here at times. We can force the lock if necessary. I want to enter the building and see where Morse had his office." "All right, go ahead. I'll engage Mr. Damon here so he won't follow you. It'll be great news for him. It will be great news for him. Go ahead." Under pretense of wanting the help of the eccentric man in completing the repairs he had started, Mr. Sharp took Mr. Damon back to the cabin. Tom, getting a big screwdriver from the outside toolbox, approached the scuttle on the roof. He could see it looming up in the semi-darkness, a sort of box. I like the word scuttle, says Sendo. Yeah, try it with a C, is the way they're spelling it here. Now, scuttle, to me, I'm used to a coal scuttle, which is a thing that you scoop coal into. But it's like a bucket with a wedge shape to it. Or it's like a cylinder with a cutout of the front of it, and you carry your coal through to the part of the house that needs it. And if you need to, you shake it in the coal into the fire. And so I think the name is because of the wedge shape of it. It's one of those doors with a roof that comes down onto the normal roof that's surrounding it for this sort of building. Because they called it that when they were on the school building, remember? That was the scuttle. They came up through the scuttle. And yeah, like a crab scuttling. It's the same sort of word. I don't know how they are connected with each other. Is it the sidewaysness of it? PJ's looking it up for me. He could see it looming up in the semi-darkness, a sort of box covering a stairway that led down into the building. The door was locked, but Tom forced it. "Oh, I thought it was one of those semicircle ladders," says Sendai Sweetie. "I know the sort you mean, where it's a ladder that's got a cage around the side of it. I think that's what you're meaning, like a safety cage for a fire escape." Yeah. The door was locked, but Tom forced it and felt justified. A few minutes later, curiously flashing his light almost like a burglar, he thought, he was prowling around the corridors of the office structure. Why is it called an arcade? To me, that usually means it's like a mall or a place where they have lots of games, activities and things like that. Was it deserted? That was what he wanted to know. He knew the office Morse had formerly occupied was 2 floors from the top. Tom descended the staircase, trying to think up some excuse to offer in case he met the watchman or janitor. But he encountered no one. As he reached the floor where he knew Morse and his gang were wont to assemble, he paused and listened. At first he heard nothing. Then, as the sound of the storm became less, he fancied he heard the murmur of voices. "Suppose it should be some of them." Suppose it should be some of them, whispered Tom. PJ is here to enlighten us on words.
So, scuttle I haven't found one that's referring to
The roof
that
door.
Oh, that actually may be related. Sorry.
Quickly.
Scuttle, the coal scoop thing. Second part of the definition. British English, the part of a car's bodywork between the windscreen and the bonnet.
Yes, the old ones. And when I was looking up pictures of the old cars to show you guys, they talked about the engine housing, and then they talked about the scuttle, which is the widening up from that rounded shape to the main body of the car, which is quite distinctive in the really, really old ones. I did see that the other
Origin, late Old English, scutel or scuttle being S-C-U-T-E-L, meaning dish or platter, from Old Norse, scuttle, S-K-U-T-I-L-L, from Latin scutella, S-C-U-T-E-L-L-A, meaning dish. So that's the cold one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to wait for ads to go away.
Does that make you want to buy things from Temu?
No.
Advertising.
It makes me want to avoid them even more.
Exactly.
Scuttle like what a crab does scuttling.
Yeah.
Origin, late 15th century, compare with dialect scuddle, frequentative of scud, definition 1, S-C-U-D, which is... Oh, bastard. The origin for that one is mid-16th century as a verb, perhaps an alteration of the noun scut, S-C-U-T, thus reflecting the sense race like a hare,
Okay.
H-A-R-E. So, no relation whatsoever, just
No.
once again, English
Words
has things that,
merging.
yeah.
Mm.
It's quite
And the
amusing
tail on
when
a
it
rabbit
does
used to
that.
be called a scut.
Oh.
Scut, hare, race like a
Yes.
hare.
Okay, so
That will be connected
I
to
was
it.
mispronouncing that one then. That'll be what the
Dunno.
scut was then.
Yeah. I just remember because when you were shooting rabbits for bounties in New Zealand, the way you proved it to the local council, because they would give you replacement bullets so that because they're a noxious pest in New Zealand. So to encourage lowering the numbers of them by shooting them, you kept the tail, but they called it the scut.
Yeah, that also fits kind of with in Minecraft actually. Armadillos and turtles have. I've not been sure.
Tiny
how to
little
pronounce
tails
it.
at the back.
S-C-U-T-E, I think it is.
Yeah, that might be pronounced scoot.
Yeah, that's what I figure.
Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. All these weird things you find out and you can't hang around here. Let's carry on then. Suppose it should be some of them, whispered Tom. to himself. He went forward, pausing at almost every other step to listen. The voices became louder. Tom was nearly at the office where Morse had once had his headquarters. Now he could see it, and his heart gave a great thump as he noticed that the light was lighted. The light was lighting. It was doing its job. The lad could read the name on the door, Industrial Development Company. That was the name of a fake concern headed by Morse. As our hero looked, he saw the shadows of two men thrown on the ground glass. Ground as in it's frosted. The surface of it's been ground off. Is this reminding anyone of the noir detective stories where they used to have, like the detective's door, and it would be frosted glass with the name painted on the door, and you'd see the silhouettes of people talking to each other, and it was usually a key point of the story. Someone's in there, he whispered to himself. I wish he'd keep his mouth shut when he's on his own. I know they need to tell us what he's thinking, but they can tell us that he's thinking it instead of him saying it, because otherwise they're going to hear him. Someone's in there, he whispered to himself. He could now hear the voices much plainer. They came from the room, but the lad could not distinguish them as belonging to any of the gang with whom he had come in contact and who had escaped from jail. The low murmur went on for several seconds. The listener could make out no words. Suddenly the low, even mumble was broken. Someone cried out, There's got to be a divvy soon. There's no use letting Morse hold that whole 75,000 any longer. I'm going to get what's coming to me, or... Hush, someone else cried. Be quiet. No, I won't. I want my share. I've been waiting long enough. If I don't get what's coming to me inside of a week, I'll go to Shagman myself and make Morse whack up. I helped on the job and I want my money. You be quiet, pleaded another, and at that instant Tom heard someone's hand on the knob. I hope he's got quiet shoes on. The door opened a crack, letting out a pencil of light. The men were evidently coming out. The young inventor did not wait to hear more. He had a clue now, and running on tiptoes, he made his way to the staircase and out of the scuttle on the roof, which we still don't know why it's called a scuttle. Chapter 21, On the Trail. What's the matter, Tom? Asked Mr. Sharp as the lad came hurrying along the roof. 10 minutes. As the lad came hurrying along the roof, wait a minute, did they not hear the airship crash onto their roof then? Apparently not. They probably assumed it was thunder. Having taken the precaution to fasten the scuttle door as well as he could. You seem excited. So would you if you'd heard what I did. What? You don't mean that some of the gang is down here? Yes, and what's more, I'm on the trail of the thieves who robbed the Shopton Bank of the $75,000. No, you don't mean it. I certainly do. Well, then we better call Mr. Damon. He's in the cabin. Of course I'll tell him. He's as much concerned as I am. He wants to be vindicated. Isn't it great luck, though? But you haven't landed the men yet. Do you mean to say that the same gang, the Happy Harry crowd, robbed the bank? Well, duh. They were seen around town and they chased Mr. Damon. If you haven't landed the men yet, do you mean to say that the same gang, the Happy Harry crowd, robbed the bank? I think so, from what I heard. But come inside and I'll tell you all about it. Suppose we start the ship first. It's ready to run. It wasn't as much the matter with it as I feared. There wasn't as much. The storm's over now and we'll be safer up in the air than on this roof. Did you get all the information you could? All I dared to. The men were coming out, so I had to run. They were quarrelling, and when that happens among thieves, why, honest men get their dues. Everyone knows that proverb. And, that's Mr. Damon, sorry. Why, honest men get their dues. Everyone knows that proverb. Interrupted Mr. Damon, again emerging from the cabin. But bless my quotation marks, I should think you'd have something better to do than stand there talking proverbs. We have, replied Mr. Sharp quickly. We're going to start the ship, and then we have some news for you. Tom, you take the steering wheel, and I'll start the gas machine. Get up far enough that Mr. Damon's not going to jump out and chase them. And I'll start the gas machine. We'll rise to some distance before starting the propellers, and then we won't create any excitement. But what news are you going to tell me? Asked Mr. Damon. Bless my very existence, but you get me all excited, and then you won't gratify my curiosity. Bless my quotation At least this story, they're trying to make his blessings more connected to what's actually currently going on. The previous stories with them in, they've just been random. Bless my collar studs? No. In a little while we will, responded Mr. Sharp. Lively now, Tom. Someone may see this airship on top of the building, as it's getting so much lighter now after the storm. The outburst of the elements was almost over, and Tom, taking another look over the edge of the roof, could see persons moving about in the street below. We don't know if it's day or night, but it felt like it was night. The storm clouds were passing, and a faint haze showed where a moon would soon make its appearance. Okay, night. Thus disclosing the craft so oddly perched upon the roof. There was need of haste. Go up pretty quick, guys. Fortunately, the red cloud could be sent aloft without the use of the propellers, for the gas would serve to lift her. It had been found that lightning had struck the big red aluminium container, but the shock had been comparatively slight one, and as the tank was insulated from the rest of the ship, no danger resulted to the occupants. Gas. A rent was made in 2 or 3 of the gas compartments, but the others remained intact, and when an increased pressure of the vapour was used, the ship was almost as buoyant as before. Into the cabin the 3 travellers hurried, dripping water at every step, for there was no time to change clothes. Then, with Tom and Mr. Sharp managing the machinery, the craft slowly rose. It was well that they had started, for when a few hundred feet above the roof, the moon suddenly shone out from behind a bank of clouds, and would most certainly have revealed their position to persons in the street. As it was, several were attracted by the sight of some great object in the air. They had called the attention of others to it, but by the time glasses and telescopes had been brought to bear, the red cloud was far away. Dry clothes now, some hot drinks, and then Tom will tell us his secret, remarked Mr. Sharp, and with the great ship swaying high above the city of Middleville, Tom told what he had heard in the office building. They are the thieves who looted the bank and caused us to be unjustly accused, he finished. If we can capture them, we'll get the reward and turn a neat track on Andy Foger and his cronies. Vindictive, are we? No, not at all. We don't want to pay him back at all. But how can you capture them? No, but how can you capture them? Asked Mr. Damon. You don't know where they are. Perhaps not where Morse and the men who have the money are, but I have a plan. It's this. We'll go to some quiet place, leave the airship, and then inform the authorities of our suspicions. They can come here and arrest the men who seem to be hanging out in Morse's office. Then we can get on the trail of this Shagman, who seems to be the person in authority this time, though I've never heard of him before. He seems to have the money, according to what one of the men in the office said, and he's the man we want. Shagman! Exclaimed Mr. Damon. Yes, Shagman. The fellow I heard talking said he'd go to Shagman and make Morse whack up. Shagman may be the real head of the gang. Ha! I have it, cried Mr. Damon suddenly. I wonder I didn't think of it before. Shagman is the headquarters, not the head of the gang. What do you mean? Asked Tom, much excited. I mean that there's a town called Shagman about 50 miles from here. And by the way, it's Shagmon, in case you're wondering. And no silly giggles unless you keep it private, okay? That's what the fellow in the office meant. He was going to the town of Shagman to make Morse whack up. Hand over. Share it out. That's where Morse is. That's where the gang is hiding. That's where the money is. Hurrah, Tom, we're on the trail. Chapter 22, the sheriff on board. How are we going for chapters? We've got 3 more after this one. Oh, my goodness. We've got 35. No, I want to finish it. I'll try not. Let's carry on. Chapter 22, the sheriff on board. The announcement of Mr. Damon came as a great surprise to Tom and Mr. Sharp. They had supposed that the reference to Shagmon was to a person and never dreamed that it was to a locality. They're in their home area. Well, Tom's, and he's never heard of the place before. But Mr. Damon's knowledge of geography stood them in good stead. Well, what's the first thing to do? Asked Tom after a pause. The first thing would be to go to Shagmon, or close to it, I should say, remarked Mr. No. The first thing would be to go to Shagmon, or close to it, I would say, remarked Mr. Sharp. In what direction is it, Mr. Damon? Northwest from where we were. It's a county seat, and that will suit our plans admirably, for we can call on the sheriff for help. Because usually county seat, you know, the main town of the county is where the main police force are based. That is, if we locate the... Oh, sorry. My nose, it just suddenly got so very itchy on the end of it. I don't know why. That is, if we locate the gang, put in Tom. I fancy it'll be no easy job, though. How are we going about it? Let's first get to Shagmon, suggested the balloonist. We'll select some quiet spot for a landing and then talk matters over. We may well stumble on the gang just as you did, Tom, on the men in the office. No such good luck, I'm afraid. I think we'll all be better for a little sleep, declared the eccentric man. Bless my eyelids, but I'm tired out. As there was no necessity for standing watch when the airship was so high up as to be almost invisible, they all turned in and were soon sleeping soundly, though Tom had hard work at first to compose himself, for he was excited at the prospect of capturing the scoundrels, recovering the money for the bank, and clearing his good name as well as those of his friends. In the morning, careful calculations were made to enable the travellers to tell when they had reached a point directly over the small city of Shagmon, and with the skill of the veteran balloonist to aid them, this was accomplished. The airship was headed in the proper direction, and at about 10 o'clock, having made out by using telescopes, having been able to pick it out using telescopes, that there was plenty of uninhabited land about the city, the craft was sent aloft again out of a large crowd that had caught sight of it. For it was the intention of the travellers not to land until, I think what they mean is just keeping out of sight, not to land until after dark, as they wanted to keep their arrival quiet. There were two reasons for this. One was that the whole country was eager to arrest them to claim the reward offered by the bank, and they did not want this to happen. The other reason was that they wanted to go quietly into town, tell the sheriff their story, and enlist his aid. I hope he's a sympathetic listener. All that day the Red Cloud consorted with the masses of fleecy vapour, correct use of the word, clouds, several miles above the earth, a position being maintained as nearly as could be judged by instruments, over a patch of woodland where Mr. Sharp had decided to land, as there were several large clearings in it. Back and forth above the clouds, out of sight, the airship drifted lazily to and fro, sometimes when she got too far off her course, being brought back to the right spot by means of the propellers. It was tedious waiting, but they felt it was the only thing to do. Mr. Sharp and Tom busied themselves making adjustments to several parts of apparatus that needed it. Nothing could be done toward repairing the hole in the aluminium container until a workshop, or shed was reached, but the ship really did not need these repairs to enable it to be used. Mr. Damon was fretful and blessed so many things during the course of the day that there seemed to be nothing left. Dinner and supper took up some time, really good meals being served by Tom, who was temporarily acting as cook. Then they anxiously waited for darkness, when they could descend. Oh, sure, but they'll fly into a massive storm. It does feel like that, doesn't it? I hope the moon isn't too bright, remarked Mr. Sharp as he went carefully over the motor once more. For he did not want it to balk again. If it shines too much, it'll discover us, reveal us more. But a little light would be a fine thing, and show us a good place to land, argued Tom. Fortune seemed to favour the adventurers. There was a hazy light from the moon, which was covered by swiftly moving dark clouds, now and then a most effective screen for the airship, as its great moving shape, viewed from the earth, resembled nothing so much as one of the clouds. They made a good landing in a little forest glade, the craft, under the skillful guidance of Mr. Sharp and Tom, coming down nicely. Now for a trip to town to notify the sheriff. Because, of course, the sheriff's in his office, waiting for people to come and talk to him about crime 24 hours a day. Tom, I think you'd better go alone. You can explain matters, and Mr. Damon and I will remain here until you come back. I should say that what you had best do would be to get the sheriff to help you locate the gang of bank robbers. They're in this vicinity, and he ought to be able, with his deputies, to find them. I'll ask him, replied Tom, as he set off. It was rather a lonely walk into the city from the woods where the airship had landed, but Tom did not mind it, and Reaching Shagmon, he inquired his way to the home of the sheriff, for it was long after office hours. Yay, acknowledgement, finally. He heard, as he walked along the streets, many persons discussing the appearance of the airship that morning, and he was glad they had planned to land after dark, for more than one citizen was regretting that he had not had a chance to get the $5,000 reward offered for the arrest of the passengers in the Red Cloud. Why did they even let themselves be seen? Is that part of the plan, do you think? Tom found the sheriff, Mr. Durkin by name, a genial personage. At the mention of the airship, the official grew somewhat excited. "Are you one of the fellows that looted the bank?" he inquired when Tom told him how he and his friends had arrived at Shagmon. The young inventor denied the impeachment and told his story. He ended up with a request for the sheriff's aid, and at the same time asking if the officer knew where such a gang as the Happy Harry one might be hiding. "You've come just at the right time, young man," was the answer of Sheriff Durkin when he was assured of the honesty of Tom's statements. "I've been on the point for the last week of raiding a camp of men who've settled at a disused summer resort about 10 miles from here. I think they're running a gambling game, but I haven't been able to get any evidence, and every time I send out a posse, someone warns the men and we can find nothing wrong. I believe these men are the very ones you want. If we could only get to them without their suspecting it, I think I'd have them right." "We can do that, Sheriff." "How?" "Go in our airship. You come with us and we'll put you right over their camp where you can drop down on their heads." "Good land, I never rode in an automobile even, let alone an airship," went on the officer. "I'd be scared out of my wits, and so would my deputies." "Send the deputies on ahead," suggested Tom. The sheriff hesitated. Then he slapped his thigh with his big hand. "By golly, I'll go with you," he declared. "I'll try capturing criminals in an airship for the first time in my life. Lead the way, young man." An hour later, Sheriff Durkin was aboard the Red Cloud, and plans were being talked of for the capture of the bank robbers, or at least for raiding the camp where the men were supposed to be. That sounded like a bit of foreshadowing too. Chapter 23, on to the camp. "Well, you sure have got a fine craft here," remarked Sheriff Durkin as he looked over the airship after Tom and his friends had told of their voyage. "It'll be quite up to date to raid a gang of bank robbers in a flying machine, but I guess it will be the only way we can catch those fellows. Now I'll go back to town, and the first thing in the morning I'll round up my posse and start it off." How's that going to work if every other time you've done this, they've had word beforehand and everything's been in order and you can't catch them doing naughty things? "I'll round up my posse and start it off. The men can surround the camp and lay quiet until we arrive in this ship. Then when we descend on the heads of the scoundrels, right out of the sky, so to speak, my men can close in and bag them all." "That's a good plan," commented Mr. Sharp. "But are you sure these are the men we want? It's pretty vague. I think, of course, the clue Tom got is pretty slim, merely the name Shagmon." "Well, this is Shagmon," went on the sheriff, "and as I told your young friend, I've been trying for some time to bag the men at the summer camp. Then they number quite a few, and if they don't do anything worse, they run a gambling game there. I'm pretty sure if the bank robbers are in this vicinity, they're in that camp. Of course, all the men there may not have been engaged in looting the vault, and they may not all know of it, but it won't do any harm to round up the whole bunch." After a tour of the craft and waiting to take a little refreshment with his new friends, the sheriff left, promising to come as early on the morrow as possible. "Let's go to bed," suggested Mr. Sharp after a bit. "We've got hard work ahead of us tomorrow." They were up early, and in the seclusion of the little glade of the woods, Tom and Mr. Sharp went over every part of the airship. The sheriff arrived about 9 o'clock and announced that he had started off through the woods to surround the camp, 25 men. He started them off, right. They'll be there at noon, Mr. Durkin said, and will close in when I give the signal, which will be 2 shots fired. I heard just before I came here that there are some new arrivals at the camp. Maybe those are the men I overheard talking in the office building, suggested Tom. They probably came to get their share. Well, we must swoop down on them before they have time to distribute the money. That's what, agreed the county official. Mr. Durkin was even more impressed by the airship in the daytime than he had been at night. He examined every part, and when the time came to start, he was almost as unconcerned as any of the 3 travellers who had covered many hundreds of miles in the air. "This is certainly great," cried the sheriff as the airship rose swiftly under the influence of the powerful gas. As the craft went higher and higher, his enthusiasm grew. He was not the least afraid, but then Sheriff Durkin was accounted a nervy individual under all circumstances. Nervy usually means someone is very nervous, not the opposite. "Lay her a little off to the left," the officer advised Tom, who was at the steering wheel. "The main camp is right over there. How long before we'll reach it?" "We can get there in about 15 minutes if we run at top speed," answered the lad, his hand on the switch that controlled the motor. "Shall we?" "No use burning up the air. Besides, my men have hardly had time to surround the camp. It's in deep woods. If I were you, I'd get right over it and then rise up out of sight so they can't see you. Well, you get up high enough first anyway and then get over it, not the other way around. Then when it's noon, you can go down. I'll fire the signal and the fun will commence. That is fun for us, but not so much for those chaps, I fancy." And the sheriff smiled grimly. Excuse me, itchy nose. The sheriff's plan was voted a good one, and accordingly the ship, after nearing a spot about over the camp, was sent a mile or 2 into the air, hovering as nearly as possible over one spot. Shortly before 12, the sheriff, having seen to the weapons he brought with him, gave the signal to descend. Down shot the red cloud, dropping swiftly when the gas was allowed to escape from the red container, and also urged towards the earth by the deflected rudder. "Are you all ready?" cried the sheriff, looking at his watch. "All ready," replied Mr. Sharp. "Then here goes," went on the officer, drawing his revolver and firing 2 shots in quick succession. 2 shots from the woods below answered him. Faster dropped the red cloud toward the camp of the criminals. Chapter 24, how many have we got? 24 and 25. I'm going to have to read them. I'm sorry, I just have to. I know I normally would have already stopped. I've got to finish this. That's getting too exciting. Chapter 24, the raid. "Look for a good place to land," cried Mr. Sharp to Tom. "Any small level place will do. Turn on the gas full power as soon as you feel the first contact, and then shut it off so as to hold her down. OCD compels you. Yes, indeed. Then jump out and take a hand in the fight." "That's right," cried the sheriff. "But make sure you've taken something to disable the ship so the bad guys can't take off in it." "Fight's the word. They're breaking from cover now," he added as he looked over the side of the cabin from one of the windows. "The rascals have taken the alarm." The airship was descending toward a little glade in the woods surrounding the old picnic ground. Men, mostly of the tramp sort, could be seen running to and fro. "I hope my deputies close in promptly," murmured the sheriff. "There's a bigger bunch here than I counted on." From the appearance of the gang rushing about, it seemed as if there were at least 50 of them. Some of the fellows caught sight of the airship and with yells pointed upward. Nearer and nearer the earth settled the red cloud. The criminals in the camp were running wildly about. Several squads of them darted through the woods only to come hurriedly back, where they called to their companions. "Ha! My men are evidently on the job!" exclaimed the sheriff. "They're running the rascals back." Some of the gang were so alarmed at the sight of the great airship settling down on their camp that they could only stand and stare at it. Others were gathering sticks and stones as if for weapons. No, as if for resistance, and some could be seen to have weapons. Off to one side was a small hut, rather better than the rest of the tumble-down shacks in which the tramps lived. Tom noticed this, and saw several men gathered about it. One seemed familiar. to the lad. He called the attention of Mr. Damon to the fellow. "Do you know him?" asked Tom eagerly. "Bless my very existence if it isn't Anson Morse, one of the gang," cried the eccentric man. "That's what I thought," agreed Tom. "The bank robbers are here," he added to the sheriff. "If we only recover the money, we'll be doing well," remarked Mr. Sharp. Suddenly there came a shout from the fringe of the woods surrounding the camp, and an instant later there burst from the bushes a number of men. "One chapter more, one chapter more, one chapter more." Might as well finish. Yeah, I know. There burst from the bushes a number of men. "My posse!" cried the sheriff. "We ought to be down now." The airship was 100 feet above the ground, but Tom opening wider the gas outlet, sent the craft more quickly down. Then, just as it touched the earth, he forced a mass of vapour into the container, making the ship buoyant so as to reduce the shock. An instant later, the ship was stationary, so he's got quite good at that. Out leapt the sheriff. "Give it to him, men!" he shouted. With a yell, his men responded and fired a volley in the air. "Come on, Tom!" cried Mr. Sharp. "We'll make for the hut where you saw Morse." "I'll come too! I'll come too!" shouted Mr. Damon, rushing along as fast as he could, a seltzer bottle in either hand. Seltzer bottle, that's soda water. Tom's chief interest was to reach the men he suspected were the bank robbers. The lad dashed through the woods toward the hut, near which he had seen Morse. He and Mr. Sharp reached it about the same time. As they came in front of it, out dashed Happy Harry the tramp. He was followed by Morse and the man named Featherton. The latter carried a black valise. "Hey, drop that!" shouted Mr. Sharp. "Drop nothing!" yelled the man. Go on!" urged Morse. "Take to the woods. We'll deal with these fellows." "Oh, you will, eh?" shouted Tom, and remembering his football days, he made a dive between Morse and Happy Harry for the man with the bag, which he guessed contained the stolen money. The lad made a good tackle. And grabbed Featherton about the legs. He went down in a heap with Tom on top. Our hero was feeling about for the valise when he felt a stunning blow on the back of the head. He turned over quickly to see Morse in the act of delivering a second kick. Tom grew faint and dimly saw the leader of the gang reach down for the valise. This gave our hero sudden energy. He was not going to lose everything when it was just within his grasp. Conquering by strong effort his feeling of dizziness, he scrambled to his feet and made a grab for Morse. The latter fended him off, but Tom came savagely back at him, all his fighting blood up. The effects of the cowardly blow were passing off. The lad managed to get one hand on the handle of the bag. "Let go!" cried Morse, and he dealt Tom a blow in the face. It staggered the youth, but he held on grimly and raised his left hand and arm as a guard. Oh, and by the way, we had gas a couple of times before. Used his arm as a guard. At the same time, he endeavoured to twist the valise loose from Morse's hand. The man raised his foot to kick Tom, but at that moment there was a curious hissing sound, and a stream of frothy liquid shot over the lad's head right into the face of the man, blinding him. "Oh, because they're the soda bottles with the spout on them." "Ah, take that, and more of it!" shouted Mr. Damon, and a second stream of seltzer squirted into the face of Morse. With a yell of rage, he let go of his hold on the satchel, and Tom staggered back with it. The lad saw Mr. Damon rushing toward the now disabled leader, playing both bottles of seltzer on him. Then, when all the liquid was gone, the eccentric man began to beat Morse over the head and shoulders with the heavy bottles until the scoundrels begged for mercy. Those are probably those big glass bottles with the soda top on them that have like a metal mesh around the outside, like a net. Tom was congratulating himself on his success in getting the bag when Happy Harry the tramp rushed at him. Of course he did. "I guess I'll take that," he roared, and wheeling Tom around at the same time striking him full in the face, the ugly man made a grab for the valise. His hand had hardly touched it before he went down like a log, the sound of a powerful blow causing Tom to look up. He saw Mr. Sharp standing over the prostrate tramp who had been cleanly knocked out. "You all right, Tom?" asked the balloonist. "Yes, trifle dizzy, that's all. I've got the money." "Are you sure?" Tom opened the valise. Yes, lots of water. Lad, I think it was, wasn't it? And the gaseous sound of the seltzer bottles. Are you sure? Tom opened the valise. A glance was enough to show that it was stuffed with bills. Happy Harry showed signs of coming to, and Mr. Sharp, with a few turns of a rope he had brought along, soon secured him. Morse was too exhausted to fight more, for the seltzer entering his mouth and nose had deprived him of breath, and he fell an easy prisoner to Mr. Damon. Morse was soon tied up. The other members of the Happy Harry gang had escaped. Again. Meanwhile, the sheriff and his men were having a fight with the crowd of tramps, but as the posse was determined and the criminals mostly of the class known as hobos, the battle was not a very severe one. Several of the sheriff's men were slightly injured, however, and a few of the tramps escaped. Boom, Goriki. See, no, Sweetie says Goriki is a glittering red panda, but of course. A few of the tramps escaped. A most successful raid. commented the sheriff when quiet was restored, and a number of prisoners were lined up, all tied securely. Did you get the money? Almost all of it, answered Tom, who, now that Morse and Happy Harry were securely tied, had busied himself with the aid of Mr. Sharp and Mr. Damon in counting the bills. Only about $2,000 are missing. I think the bank will be glad enough to charge that to profit and loss. I guess so, added the sheriff. I'm going to read you guys' comments shortly, but I want to finish this. I'm certainly much obliged to you for the use of your airship. Otherwise, the raid wouldn't have been so successful. Well, now we'll get the prisoners to jail. It was necessary to hire rigs from nearby farmers to accomplish this. As for Morse and Happy Harry, they were placed in the airship and under guard of the sheriff, and 2 deputies were taken to the county seat. The criminals were too dazed over the rough treatment they had received and over their sudden capture to notice the fact of riding through the air to jail. Now for home, cried Tom when the prisoners had been disposed of. Home to clear our names and take this money to the bank. And receive the reward, added Mr. Sharp with a smile. Don't forget that. Oh, yes, and I'll see that you get a share too, Mr. Durkin, went on Tom. Only for your aid we never would have gotten these men and the money. Oh, I guess we're about even on that score, responded the official. I'm glad to break up that gang. The next morning, Tom and his friends started for home in the Red Cloud. They took with them evidence as to the guilt of the 2 men, Morse and Happy Harry. The men confessed that they and their pals had robbed the Bank of Shopton the night before Tom and his friends sailed on their trip. In fact, that was the object for which the gang hung around Shopton. After securing their booty, they had gone to the camp for the tramps at Shagman, where they had hid, hoping they would not be traced. But the words Tom had overheard had been their undoing. The men who had arrived at the camp just before the raid were the same ones the young inventor heard talking in the office building. They had come to get their share of the loot, which Morse held, and with which he tried so desperately to get away. Tom's injuries were not serious and did not bother him after being treated by a physician. Chapter 25, last one. And he gets his reward. Flying swiftly through the air, the young inventor and his 2 companions were soon within sight of Shopton. As they approached the town from over the lake and the patch of woods, they attracted no attention until they were near home, and the craft settled down easily in the yard of the Swift property. That the aged inventor was glad to see his son back need not be said, and Mrs. Baggert's welcome was scarcely less welcome than that of Mr. Swift. Mr. Sharp and Mr. Damon were also made welcome, to feel that their friends were glad to see them safe again. We must go at once and see Mr. Pendergast, the bank president, declared Mr. Swift. We must take the money to him and demand that he withdraw the offer for reward for your arrest. Yes, agreed Tom. Hang on, I'll get this out of your way. No, not there. Up here. Come on, up here. Yes. No, this way. This way. You say hello. You say hello. You say hello. Yesterday was National Hug Your Cat Day. I'm hugging him for you. Yeah. See, no, sweetie says hi, kitty. You say hello, Theo. You say Theo. You say hello. Can they hear you? No, he meowed no. I hope you heard that. There you go. Sit down. I'll give you a treat in a minute. I've got to finish this. Got to finish this. Actually, I can put the camera on and hopefully he'll stay because he wants a treat. Cat, that one. Oh, okay. And stay. He really wants a treat. We must go at once and see Mr. Pendergast, the bank president. I'm working on new Theo redeems. Yes, we know. He is, actually. He's working on it with me, giving me some ideas, and I'm figuring out how to technically do them. We must take the money to him and demand that he withdraw the offer of a reward for your arrest. I better not knock over that lava lamp, eh? Yes, agreed Tom. I guess the reward will go to someone besides Andy Foger. Put that one there for you. There was considerable surprise on the part of the bank clerks when our hero and his friends walked in, carrying a heavy black bag, but they could only conjecture what was in the wind, for the party was immediately closeted with the bank president. Surprise, surprise. Mr. Pendergast was so startled that he hardly knew what to say when Tom, aided by Mr. Sharp, told his story, but the return of the money with documents from Sheriff Durkin certifying as to the arrest of Morse and Happy Harry soon convinced him of the truth of the account. Yay! It's the most wonderful thing I ever heard, said the president. Well, what are you going to do about it? Asked Mr. Damon. You've accused Tom and myself of being thieves. And I apologise most humbly, exclaimed Mr. Pendergast. I also... What about the reward? Went on Mr. Damon. Bless my banknotes, I don't want any of it, for I have enough, but I think Tom and Mr. Sharp and the sheriff are entitled to it. Certainly, said the president. Certainly. It will be paid at once. I will call a meeting of the directors. In fact, they are all in the bank now, save Mr. Foger, and I can reach him by telephone. If you'll just rest yourselves in that room there, I will summon you before the board when it convenes, and be most happy to pay over the $5,000 reward. It is the most wonderful thing I ever heard of. Most wonderful. In a room adjoining that of the president, Tom, his father, and Mr. Damon waited for the directors to meet. Mr. Foger could be heard entering a little later. What's this I hear, Pendergast? He cried, rubbing his hands. The bank robbers captured? Eh, well, that's good news. Of course we'll pay the reward. I always knew my boy was a smart lad. $5,000 will be a tidy sum for him. Of course his chum Sam Snedeker is entitled to some, but not much. So they've caught Tom Swift and that rascally Damon, eh? I always knew he was a scoundrel, putting money in here as a blind. Mr. Damon heard and shook his fist. I'll make him suffer for that, he whispered. Tom Swift arrested, eh? Went on Mr. Foger. I always knew he was a bad egg. Who caught them? Where are they? In the next room, replied Mr. Pendergast, who loved a joke almost as well as did Tom. They may come out now, added the president, opening the door and sending Ned Newton in to summon Tom, Mr. Swift, and Mr. Damon, who filed out before the board of directors. Gentlemen, began the president, I have the pleasure of presenting to you Mr. Thomas Swift, Mr. Barton Swift, and Mr. Wakefield Damon. I also have the honour to announce that Mr. Thomas Swift and Mr. Damon have been instrumental in catching the burglars who recently robbed our bank, and I'm happy to add that young Mr. Swift and Mr. Wakefield Damon have this morning brought to me all but a small part of the money stolen from us, which money they succeeded after a desperate fight. A fight partly with seltzer bottles, interrupted Mr. Damon proudly. Don't forget them. Partly with seltzer bottles, conceded the president with a smile. After a fight, they succeeded in getting the money back. Here it is, and I now suggest that we pay the reward we promised. What? Reward? Pay them? The money back? Isn't my son to receive the $5,000 for informing as to the identity of the theft? Isn't he? Demanded Mr. Foger, almost suffocating from his astonishment at the unexpected announcement. Hardly, said Mr. Pendergast dryly. Your son's information happened to be very wrong. The tools he saw Tom have in the bag were Airship tools, not burglars, and the same gang that once robbed Mr. Swift robbed our bank. Tom Swift captured them and is entitled to the reward. It will be necessary for us directors to make up the sum, personally, and I, for one, am very glad to do so. I'd be firing that guy as a bank director too. So am I, came in a chorus from the others seated at the table. But I understood that my son, stammered Mr. Foger, who did not at all relish having to see his son lose the reward. It was all a mistake about your son, commented Mr. Pendergast. Gentlemen, is it your desire that I write out a cheque for young Mr. Swift? They all voted in the affirmative, even Mr. Foger being obliged to do so, much against his wishes. He was a very much chagrined man when the directors' meeting broke up. Word was sent at once by telegraph to all the cities where reward posters had been displayed, recalling the offer, stating that Tom Swift and Mr. Damon were cleared. Mr. Sharp had never been really accused. So they didn't need to refute anything for that. Well, let's go home, suggested Tom when he had the $5,000 cheque in his pocket. He's not putting it in that bank. I want another ride in the Red Cloud as soon as it's repaired. So do I, replied Mr. Damon. The eccentric man and Mr. Swift walked on ahead, and Tom strolled down toward the dock, for he thought he would take a short trip in his motorboat. He was near the lake, not having met many persons, when he saw a figure running up from the water, and he knew who it was in an instant. Andy Foger. As for the bully, at the sight of Tom, he hesitated, then came boldly on. Evidently he had not heard of our hero's arrival. There you go. Ha! Exclaimed the red-haired lad. I've been looking for you. The police want you, Tom Swift. Oh, do they? Asked the young inventor gently. Yes, for robbery. I'm going to get the reward too. You thought you were smart, but I saw those burglar tools in your valise. I sent the police after you, so you've come back, eh? I'm going to tell Chief Simonson. You wait. Yes, answered Tom. I'll wait. So the police want me, do they? That's what they do, snarled Andy. I told you I'd get even with you, and I've done it. Well, burst out Tom, unable to longer contain himself, as he thought of all he had suffered at the hands of the red-haired bully. I said I'd get even with you, but I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do now. Take off your coat, Andy. You and I are going to have a little argument. Don't you dare lay a finger on me, blustered the squint-eyed one. Tom peeled off his coat. Andy, who saw that he could not escape, rushed forward and dealt the young inventor a blow on the chest. That was all Tom wanted, and the next instant he went at Andy hammer and tongs. The bully tried to fight, but he had no chance with his antagonist, who was righteously angry and who made every blow tell. It was a sorry-looking Andy Foger who begged for mercy a little later. Tom had no desire to administer more than a deserved reward to the bully, but perhaps he did add a little for interest. At any rate, Andy thought so. You just wait, he cried as he limped off. I'll make you sorry for this. Oh, don't go to any trouble on my account. Hammer and tongs. Now it's errand tongs. Oh my goodness. Subtitles, go home, you're drunk. Oh, don't go to any trouble on my account, said Tom gently as he put on his coat. But Andy did go to considerable trouble to be revenged on the young inventor, and whether he succeeded or not you may learn by reading the fourth book of this series, to be called Tom Swift and His Submarine Boat, or Under the Ocean for Sunken Treasure, in which I shall relate the particulars of a voyage that was marvellous in the extreme. Yes, they are. Tom reached home in a very pleasant frame of mind that afternoon. Things had turned out much better than he thought they would. A few weeks later, the two bank robbers who were found guilty were sentenced to long terms, but their companions were not captured. Tom sent Sheriff Durkin a share of the reward, and the lad invested his own share in bank stock, after giving some to Mr. Sharp. Mr. Damon refused to accept any. As for Mr. Swift, once he saw matters straightened out and his son safe, he resumed his work on his prize submarine boat, his son helping him. As for Tom, he alternated his spare time between trips in the Airship and his motorboat, and frequently a certain young lady from the Roxmond Seminary was his companion. I think you know her name by this time. Now, for a while, we will take leave of Tom Swift and his friends, trusting to meet them again. And that's it for today, folks. And next time, that's a Monday, in 3 days' time, I am going to see if I can start my first playthrough of the completely revamped version, new full release of Lightyear Frontier. So